What up? What up? Good morning. How you doing? Good afternoon, whatever the time frame, where we at. Welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I am your host, Coach Renz, and today we're going to talk about some of the flaws in the crucifixion. This is one of the things that helped me deconstruct from Christianity, was looking at the flaws in the story, and that's how we, this is supposed to be the true word of God, but yet it cannot maintain. It has a bunch of flaws in it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before I get started, I want to thank everybody who support the channel, whether you are super chats, members, subscription holders, subscribers, super fans on TikTok, TikTok over here, Facebook and YouTube right there. So I want to thank everybody who supports the channel. Those who purchase t-shirts, those who purchase the t-shirts. In fact, I should have wore one today since it's 71 degrees today. 71 degrees. Should have had it wear our t-shirt. What up, naturalist pagan? How you doing? Make sure I got all my settings right real quick. But yeah, so it would have been so I want to thank everybody who supports the channel. Those who give gifts and whatnot. So thank you very, 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 very much. Very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So as we get ready for today's show, actually, I wasn't sure because there's some construction work going on right outside the door, out the balcony rather. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too loud, but this little sound barrier thing is pretty good right there. So we're going to make it do what it do. All right. Let's get started. Let me go ahead and put the okay. So today's conversation, and I'm going to be looking up here sometimes because my notes, my whiteboard that used to be behind me is now over here to the side. So, when I consult the whiteboard, it's because that's what I'm looking at over there. So one of the things that helped me deconstruct from Christianity was the fact that one of the, if not the most important part of the Bible had discrepancies. It had problems. It is the accounts have differences, and that is the crucifixion story. Yeah, the crucifixion story. If it can't be accounted for, can't be the eyewitness account, can't be the same. If there's discrepancies within it, then that's problematic. And it'd be one thing. It was a few things here and there. I know eyewitness account for anything is not the best, but there are certain things in the eyewitness accounts that everybody should get right. And of course, for most Christians, as long as Jesus is up there, that's all that matters. But there are certain other things that must say that it has to be correct. Now, we're just talking about the resurrection right now. I mean, the crucifixion. I said resurrection, then crucifixion. All right. Ooh, sorry about that. Need some more coffee. Just the crucifixion. I woke up earlier than normal day. So the crucifixion story, not the resurrection. Sorry. I think I was saying resurrection, but the crucifixion story has to be correct. It can't be differences. These are supposed to be eyewitness accounts, or these accounts are supposed to be influenced by God, inspired by this so-called God, and therefore it should be all the same. But it's not. So I'm going to run through it real quick and then open up the doors of the church. But we're going to run through it real quick. And real quick, still going to take a few minutes, about 10, 15 minutes. So when we look at the crucifixion story, one of the first things we look at, what time did it happen? What is the time frame? What time of the day did the crucifixion story happen? And I just did a quick little Google search, and I did that on purpose because I wanted it to be something simple that anybody can go and find. So I did a quick little Google search, and basically what I'm going to tell you today in this first part is what the quick little Google search told me, right? So a quick little search. Mark says that Jesus was crucified in the third hour. Now, the third hour of the day is 9 a.m., just so we understand. It's 9 a.m. Remember, their day starts differently. Their day starts at sunrise. And then they start counting their time frame. They don't count theirs the same way. And then John says he was crucified the 6th hour, which is 12 noon. So how was he killed at 9 and at court 3 hours later, right? Yeah, can't happen. I'm just doing the basic Google search. See that Richie is looking deeper into it, where you start to calculate the differences in the story, because we're not even talking about the different day of the weeks that these things will happen. Some before Passover meal, after Passover meal. It's just what you can find on a basic Google search. So this just a basic Google search to let you know that the stories is not compatible, that it got problems. We can get deeper in a little bit, but Mark says that he was crucified at 9 a.m. John says he was crucified at 12 noon. Now, there is a big difference. You can't make that mistake. You know the difference between 9 o'clock in the morning and 12 noon. It ain't like you woke up at noon, I think it's 9 o'clock. Now, even if you wake up at 12 noon, you know it's 12 noon. You know it's later in the day. It's midday. It ain't no 9 in the morning, 3rd hour. It's still kind of, the light's still coming up. So we got him being killed at 9. So that's problem number 1. We don't know what time he was killed. Women. What women were at the crucifixion? This is not the resurrection, the crucifixion. All right. Now, again, we have a consistency of Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene seems to only be the only consistency. So we got Mark saying that Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, and Salome were there. That's all Mark says is at the crucifixion. Matthew says those women plus Mary, the mother of the sons of Zebedee, that they were there. So Matthew, another person, is there. Now, maybe Mark didn't see the other woman, but John says that it was Jesus, that it was Mary, all the other Marys and Salome and the mother of Zebedee. But then he also says that Jesus' mama was there, her sister, Jesus' auntie, and Mary of Clopas. Now, I got a question. I can understand people, Matthew might not. Well, we already know John is not an eyewitness. But John saying that Mary, Jesus' mama, was there, and his auntie. How Matthew and Mark didn't see Jesus' mama? Jesus' mama would have been the prime person standing there. The women, when it comes to things of death, handling bodies, anointing bodies after they die, that's women do that. How they did not see Jesus' mama? She'd have been front and center. They'd have been front. She'd have been front and center. But Matthew and Mark don't mention Jesus' mama being at the crucifixion. Come on now. You know that's somebody just. John is adding Jesus. See, the Matthew and Mark were written way before John. John is just throwing some shit in there to add to the drama. This is when people say that, like how they say the older the book was written, the more the story, and more the bigger the story is. It's fish story. It's a legend. John is like, yeah, his mama was there and his auntie was there, and they were all crying, and they best friend, his fake auntie, Mary of Clopas, she was there. Clopas, sorry, she was there, and all that, man. It was a cry festival, and Jesus was looking down at his mama, and he was like, "Oh, don't cry, mama, don't cry." That's the natural page. Christians try to harmonize. Let me put that on screen, because this is a thought process that you want to have throughout this whole thing. Christian apologists try to harmonize the text by saying one author was used in Roman times and the other author was used in Jewish time, which is complete rubbish. Yeah, as far as the different time frames, the 3 hours at 9 o'clock and 12 noon, yeah, it's all the same thing. They it's a bunch of bullshit. They can't harmonize it that way because they're just making things up, and the apologists will try to harmonize it to say that, you know, try to find ways to make it work. Oh, Jeremy, hey man, how you doing? Yeah, I took a minute. I took a break for a couple of weeks. All right, so back into it. Now, you know, I said that there are certain things maybe you don't notice certain people there. Jesus' mama, you gonna notice if Jesus' mama is there, right? You gonna notice if his mama is there. But this one, you can't make a mistake on this one. It's not possible for you to make a mistake on this one. And most people don't talk about this. The inscription on the cross. If you go to any graveyard and let's say 5 people go, y'all look at one particular tombstone, you cannot look at the tombstone and come walking away saying different stuff. Here lies Jacob, son of Ralph. He was a asshole of a man. Everybody should come away with the same thing. But no, the inscription on the cross, John says that it says Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. But then Mark says, it just says the King of the Jews. And Matthew and Luke say, this is Jesus, King of the Jews. So basically what you had is Mark wrote the King of the Jews. It is known that Matthew utilized Mark to write his. So Matthew said, this is Jesus, King of the Jews. Luke is claiming to just be a historian and just, so he's copying Matthew for the most part. And then John comes in and said, well, you know, it's a combination of all of it. Because John wasn't there. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Hold on. Somebody's knocking on the door. Oh, yeah. Can I get the whole thing? Yeah, go ahead. Let me make sure that was in there. Oh, yeah. Y'all got to hold on for a minute. I'm almost back. Hold on for a minute. Having a new washer installed. So they were supposed to call me, but they didn't call me to let me know. That's why it's an interruption. Now he got to go get some more tools. So we're going to sit down for at least a few minutes here. This is where I needed to have, this is why people have folks that help them. But I see y'all have been having conversations on your own. But all right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So I think I left off with the inscriptions are incorrect, that there are no inscriptions. That the inscriptions, are different. Now that's something that should be the same, something that should not change. The inscriptions should not change at all. Oh, did y'all hear me while I was talking to that young man? I don't know if y'all could. So How many of you have known that the inscriptions were different on the cross itself? Y'all having a whole big ass conversation over here. Like, who knew that the inscriptions were different? That one is that the inscription that John put on there is like a culmination of all the other in parts of what Matthew and Mark and Luke had placed on the inscriptions. You back? Okay. All right. So that's a problem, that the inscriptions are different. Then we have the issue of what were the last words. Now, the last words one can be a little bit tricky, but it shouldn't be so different. It'll be different if it was a variation of what somebody said, if there was different variations of someone's last words. But the exact last words of a person should be the same by everyone, right? So according to Matthew and Mark, the last words of Jesus was, my God, my God, my God, for they do not know what they do, and so on and so forth. Now, my God, for they do not know what they do. But then Luke records it as, Father, into your hands I commit myself. And then John just has, it is finished. Now, unless it's a whole, my God, they know not what they do. Father, into thy hands I commit myself. It is finished. If that was his whole thing, and some Christian apologists try to make it that was his whole statement, but those were the meaningful words of the different writers. Well, first of all, Luke and John could not have been there. So they would not have been the meaningful words of Luke and John. But for the words to be so different, that would be if you went to a political speech and the final words of the speech, they can't be that different. They have to be at least close, because we know people can hear things a little bit differently, but they needed to be at least close. And these are far and away different from one another. So there's no possibility for any of them to have recorded what was said. Matthew and Mark will be the closest one, but then why is Luke way different? And that's because Luke is claiming that he's been told this story through the longest game of telephone. Luke is claiming that this is a story that's been told to him by others, that he came and he's listening to other people's versions of the story. And according to the people who have been playing telephone with this thing, that's what Luke gets. And John, he's just a writer. I check on the work detail. So we got different people saying different things as far as the end of it. Then we got the thieves. Mark, most people think that one of the thieves went up into heaven with Jesus. That's what most people are taught. That's what most people believe. But when you actually go and look at it, Mark says that both of the thieves insulted Jesus, whereas Luke said one thief insulted Jesus, the other one defended Jesus. And then on this day, you'll be with me and my Father in heaven. That shouldn't be something that's different. That should be something that's the same as well. Hold on. I thought he was done, but he's still here. All right, so that should be something that is the same. And I'm going to go through these last two real quick. What Jesus was offered while he was up on the cross. According to Mark and Matthew, he was offered the sour wine and vinegar, but he refused it. According to John, says that Jesus was offered the sour wine and vinegar, but he accepted it. And then Luke just says that he was offered it. So one says he accepted, one says that he didn't accept it. Minor thing, but it still should be the same. And you should know the difference between whether or not somebody drank something or somebody didn't drink something. It's not what they drank, it's if they drank something. If this morning two people was watching me and they said, okay, and I drank my apple juice, one person cannot say, well, he didn't drink the apple juice. Another person say he drank the apple juice. One got to be wrong. This you can't live in this manner. And then, of course, in Matthew, he records another earthquake or the ground shaking. Nobody else records that, and that's not even the earthquake that he later records in the uh, uh, with the resurrection. So, for what I know, this has been broken because we got a maintenance guy here. It is clear that these stories are not, these are just stories, that this is a legendized story that's been told by different people who are pushing for a reformed version of Judaism. And this reformed version of Judaism turns into what later is called Christianity. But what we know is the story is just made up. It's a created story. Hold on. You done this? Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were done or not. I'll hold the door for you. But we had additional weather strips put on. Yeah. So the other one was trash. Where you can see through it. Let me know when you finish. All right. Actually works very well. All right. Okay, today has been one of those interesting days where things are, you just flow with it. You just flow with it. This is life, just happens this way. So we just keep moving. I know I've missed a ton of you guys' comments, but let's. Okay. I know I missed a lot of you guys' comments. Let me go ahead and drop the link as well, just in case, so we can allow for guests. Now, if the only thing that matters to you is that he was crucified, then then so be it. Then that's the only part of it that matters to you. But for me, I need correct information. I can't just accept that somebody, they got cooked by a good old Sparky. I need a little more info. I need to make sure that the stuff is correct, not that just simply that somebody died. I mean, there are plenty of people who died of crucifixion. At the end of the day, that don't mean nothing. Somebody just dying of crucifixion. Plenty of people. The Romans crucified tons and tons of people. All right, we got Joseph. Joseph.
Hello. Hold on 1 second.
Make sure I got my volume up.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Morning or good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Joseph. Joseph. Am I saying your name right?
And I was just about to say, Joseph. So I was speaking of King of the Jews. I was raised as a Jew, a Black Jew, and it's interesting how when people read my name as JOSEF, the first instinct is they go with Joseph, which is what I went by when I was younger, for maybe 15 years of my life. So yeah, no, we can go with Joseph. It's just been a while since I've heard since I've been called that since I was younger, but that's cool.
Well, if it was Joseph, it would have like in the English, American
Yeah,
English, then it would have the H in there. But
yeah,
that's like the
true.
Jewish way of spelling
Yep.
Joseph. So to me, it's important to say people's names as correctly as I possibly can. It's just that's a me thing. So,
All right.
so what do you think about the subject matter?
So you made 4 points. The crucifixion times being different from one another according to the accounts.
Mm-hmm.
The second point was um, the different gospels not recalling who was at his crucifixion. The third one was you making a claim that if Jesus' mother was there, right? You wouldn't mistake that. You wouldn't. It would
Right.
be uniform across all three accounts, not just one out of the three or so. And the fourth one was the inscription of the cross, and what it said, what it didn't say, what it did say, possibly. So I'll start with one, and hopefully we have enough time we can tackle all three. But I promise I won't be long. So the first one, the crucifixion time estimate. Um, my argument for that is given at the time where there was probably not clocks around, there was they guesstimate as to what time it was based on the sunrise, sunset. Oh, it's noon. We think it's about noon. You look at the people still kind of do it today. They look and see the sun. Oh, it looks like it's about 3 o'clock. Not many people have that skill today, but I would estimate that because most people being in poverty didn't have the modern clocks that we have today, wouldn't get the most accurate time um, as to when Christ was crucified. So, like just like today, we have modern surveillance. We can pinpoint down to the millisecond when a crime has taken place or something has taken place. Oh, this happened at exactly this time. But before we had this technology today, we had to go based off multiple accounts and kind of get an amalgamation of, okay, then this person saying 3 o'clock, this witness number two says 4 o'clock, this witness number three says 6 o'clock. They're all in the morning area time. So we kind of have to kind of get an estimate as to what's happening. But I don't believe that the difference in time and as to each one saying, well, it happened at 3 o'clock, it happened at 6 o'clock, and I think you said noon or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that makes it not accurate at all, or that's troubling because even up until modern standards, we only could go based off on an approximation of time. And secondly, to that point, I don't Jesus's crucifixion wasn't an event like we understand it today. So because he was crucified with a guy to his right, to his left, and there were hundreds more crucified before him, it
Okay.
wasn't seen that it was going to be this.
Wait. You going like wait? You're going into another subject matter.
Okay, cool. I'll let you respond.
So, and it's very simple. They had sundials. They had shadow clocks in first century. So knowing what time. Are you done? Okay. Hold on for a second.
Yep.
All right. So they had sundials and they had shadow clocks at that time frame. So even for the poor people or whatnot, they still would have known what time it was, what time of the day it was. They also, you know, this was necessary in order for them to function. And this is something that has started way, even before the Romans came in. This is something that they had during the time frame the Greeks were in control of them. So they already knew how to tell time. And actually, if I think about it, you can go back to when they used obelisks to be able to tell the time throughout the day from the Egyptian time frame that they were that the Levant was under Egyptian control. So they certainly would have known the difference between 9 a.m. and 12 noon. And as far as like it's being a public thing, the followers of this, it would have been important to them. Just because it's not important to everybody else, it's still going to be important to the followers of Jesus. So now, so go ahead.
Okay, that's a good rebuttal. The second part to that was Jesus' crucifixion being we recognize it as an event, or at least billions of people do today, but at the time it was a non-event because he was seen as no different than John the Baptist at the time, who was also killed for preaching basically the same things that Jesus was, and other people who came before him who were kind of like the Martin Luther Kings of the day or the Gandhis of today. Oh yeah, we just got to get rid of this guy because but they're not thinking, oh, he could potentially start a whole revolution of this religion that's called Christianity. I
Well,
don't think they
it
thought
would,
about it in that manner.
but we're talking about the followers of Jesus here. We're not talking about the Romans who recorded this aspect of it. This is what those who follow Jesus. So that would be like saying that Martin Luther King is assassinated, right? Since we just passed this holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly Jesse Jackson, it's important to him, right?
Sure.
So if Jesse is writing about it, then Jesse and the other people who are around Martin Luther King, it's important to them, so it's a big event to them. Was it a big event to somebody in India or Japan? They probably could care less. Most people in England could care less. Most people in Europe, Africa could care less at the time frame in 1969, 65, 64, when it happened. Hell, I don't even know the date, the year.
But 69.
69. I thought it was. I always confuse his assassination to the Civil Rights Act. I always mix up those years.
4 hours after.
Huh?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So this is the recording of the people who were following Jesus. So this is as important to them as the people who was following Dr. King. So that statement kind of don't match up. You know what I'm saying? Because it would be important to them.
It would be, but even when you look at, or at least some of Dr. King, well, everyone who was there in that moment, perhaps when he got shot, before, after, even they all have different perspectives on what happened. Dr. King said this to one person, but maybe Jesse wasn't privy to that conversation, but maybe he was privy to another conversation that the guy before him that King talked to wasn't privy to, and vice versa. Sometimes they was all there at one time. I don't think most of the disciples were even there. I think Peter was the one who decided not to go because he almost got killed himself. It was like, are you following Jesus too? Like, no, not me. So he didn't show up. So even though he was one of the disciples, he couldn't be a witness there whatsoever because he didn't want to get killed. He wasn't about that life, basically. So you had a few people who did show up who was risking their lives. Those who were following him, they knew they was, including Mary. I think he said John. And John, they said that Jesus's mother showed up as well, and three other people. So these people who did show up were risking their life, but a lot more people, if they was going to accept the possibility of ending up on the cross themselves, because that's at the time the Romans were just going after everybody who was following him, and perpetuating the messages he was spreading at the time. So a lot of people didn't even show up. So you had a few who did.
That argument doesn't matter. The argument of people being afraid and Peter not showing up doesn't matter. These are the 4 people who claim that they was there. And it will be one thing if we was talking about a situation where, well, Luke doesn't say he was there, but at least 3 of these people are claiming to be present: Matthew, Mark, and John. So, and Luke is recording what the history of it all. But they claim that they were there, and this is an event. So it's not Jesus said something to one person, didn't say it to the other person. Them not being there, Peter and them don't even matter. These are the only ones that matter because they said they was there. So they have to be accountable for the information that they say happened while they was there. And that's why most of the stuff I picked out are things that you shouldn't get wrong, things that should be the same. So identifying the inscription on the cross, or the women who was there, whether or not Mary, his mama, is there, they all should know if his mother is there. She's an important person in this whole thing, as well as what's written on the cross.
That's true. There was also, well, then you have the 3 gospels, right? For you talking about why does one gospel say one thing or omit one thing that the other 2 or the other 1 doesn't have, or the other 2 have, whatever. they have three gospels. It would have been so much simpler if we just had one gospel, right? Let's just say Gospel of John. Then you wouldn't even be able to make any of those arguments as to the timing, because all you would have is what it says here in John. So the issue is that they included three gospels that have even different things that Jesus said about, like, oh, it says this thing here in Matthew. Then you look in John, it says he says something different here, but you see it, it's like he's saying this, but he's saying this. It's the same. They're saying the same thing, but it's saying it in a different way. So then someone would look at it and say they should say the exact same thing. If they all say he died at 3 o'clock, then all three of them should say he died at 3 o'clock. If Jesus says, I am, you see my Father, you see me, it shouldn't say in a different way in two other different gospels. But so I guess you could make that argument, because these are, again, they're going off of memory, a lot of these people, and jotting down what they see. So should it be more accurate? I agree. It would be nice if it was just like 5 o'clock, they're done. They all are in consensus with that. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But I'm not so sure that makes a strong case for saying, well, this proves the crucifixion as it was. Do you? Okay, let me ask you this question: do you think the crucifixion even took place because of these different timings? Or is it just a matter of human error and them not getting the precise timing down pat?
Oh, I think that there are plenty of Yeshuas who claim to be the Messiah over the years in first century who were crucified. Pilate was such an ass about towards the Jewish people that he was actually brought back to Rome on charges of cruelty for the way he was putting down some of the revolts. So I'm quite sure there were plenty of Yeshuas who was crucified. But so when they created this legendized version, this biblical version of it, yeah, you got to there's enough circumstantial evidence to say that the biblical Jesus was never crucified. Other Yeshuas throughout the years, sure, but the biblical Jesus, no, because the biblical Jesus got too many differences within the stories, and these are not like slight differences. These are hard differences. Hard things to say is going to that if you're a witness to it, you should get differently from because you got a different perspective. Like his last words. A person's last words are their last words. And if there was slight variations in the last words, okay. But this is major variations. This is totally different statements, actually. Not even relating the same thing. So, the Bible version of Jesus, no.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean by last. I just did a quick Google search on the last words, and it's a few of them. It's, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Then he says something about I'll be with you in paradise. Behold your son, behold your mother. Couple of I thirst.
Well, no, I'm talking about his actual final last words. Like those were other words that were said while he was up on the cross. But his final last words in Mark and Matthew are, my God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. No, my God, why has thou forsaken me? That was his final last words. Luke, it's Father, into thy hands I commit myself. And then John, his final last word was, it is finished. Those are the final last words. But none of those are close, but except for Mark and Matthew, they record the same thing. Now, scholastically, we know that Matthew, for some reason, utilized Mark to write his gospel. And Matthew is thought to have been an eyewitness. It's been written by Matthew. So why would he use Mark?
That's a good question. I've wondered that too. My suspicion, based on research, was not everybody was as, perhaps Luke was the better writer, right? You have some people who are better writers, better historians. They have better events. It's also possible that Luke had access to more credible information. I personally believe, this is just a personal thought, is that he got a lot of his information, Luke, from probably Mary Magdalene, probably Jesus' mother, his close family members, because Luke probably had a very close relationship with Jesus and his family at the time. So closer than the disciple would have had, closer even than Matthew would have had. But that's just
Wait.
an
Luke never
aside
met
story.
Jesus.
No, he
You
never
know,
did. That's true. He was no,
Luke,
you don't know. No, I think he
Luke was
did when he was younger.
Luke was a follower of Paul and Peter, but mainly a follower of Paul. Luke
He
said
didn't.
right up there at the beginning that he never met Jesus, and he was just writing down the histories as best that he could. But Luke never met Jesus.
Well, he got that information from somewhere, someone close to Jesus.
He claims
Because in
that
order to write,
he claims that the information he got was from Peter.
it's possible. I have a different source that claims that he got it from. I can't even get it. It's no one would even believe it. But he got
I,
it from possibly a woman, and because
I ain't
women
never
are
heard that one. That would be interesting.
this a woman, and this is why they say, well, he got it from Peter, because women, well, the patriarch, it was a very sexist time at the time, and they have a hard time putting women as any sort of figurehead in the Bible as it is. So to say that, you got this information from a woman, just say that she got it from Peter. So that's a whole different aside. But nonetheless, he got some credible information from someone close to Jesus, which I agree. Luke wasn't walking with Christ. He wasn't a disciple at all. But he got it from somewhere. But for whatever reason, people claim that Luke is probably the most accurate of the Gospels. At least that's from what I'm hearing around the internet and from people that I've talked to in person.
But don't you see the inherent problem with that? It is
I do.
probably the most accurate of the Gospels.
I do.
There
I
should
do.
not be if all of this is so-called God breathed, as First Peter says, which is bullshit. Then there shouldn't be a most accurate. It should just be accurate, and that is why this problematic, because it's not accurate. You really don't know what to believe. Shit, was there an earthquake? How do you not know that? How can you mistaken? Like, there's no way you don't notice an earthquake.
But everyone, okay, good point. There's no way no one can notice an earthquake, but everyone experiences it differently. Everyone tells the story of how they experienced the earthquake differently. They can all say there was an earthquake, but then you hear individual stories on how it happened to each person, when how they felt about it. So people's feelings can get involved in describing an event that although historically, okay, this happened, but how someone perceives it. For example, when you mentioned the last three words of, or not three words, but the last words of Christ, and how all three of them have different things. My God, why have you forsaken me? Father, take me into your hands. And then him then saying it is finished. It could have been all three in sync with one another. Maybe it could have been, Father, take me into your hands. Why have you forsaken me? It's finished. But they're only saying what they heard, or the account is weird. It's like a puzzle piece. He's
No,
saying one thing, he's saying one thing. I know you might say
that's
I'm
the
making
apology.
excuse.
That's the harmonization of the apology.
I know you're going to say that, but I don't think I don't think that's not a fair, even today. If you was to describe an event that you experienced with someone else, they're going to say one side of the story, they're going to say another side, and then you say, okay, they're obviously they experienced the same thing, but they're telling the story from their perspective, filtered through their own lens on how that event took place. So that doesn't mean that neither one is true. It just means that we had the same experience, but how I experienced was how this person experienced it emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whatever. And even logically, some people can't even process or use the same words that someone is saying or
Look,
using to
I,
describe their experience.
I hear you. I hear you, but it just sounds like a whole bunch of excusology, because at the end of the day, the man said whatever he said was his last words. And I'm talking about last words. Like, I know the last words of my father, and my sister, and the girl I was dating, and the nurse who were present all recognized the same last words. The last words of my grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, my two aunts, and my uncle all know the same last words. It ain't no different. And definitely with that man, Everybody had a different experience with him, a different relationship with my grandfather. But they all came back from the hospital with the same last words. And to this day, same last words. They ain't changed. My grandfather died when I was, what, 15? I'm 54 now. But my mother and my aunt still know the same last words. You got Luke, who wasn't there. Possibly interviewed his, his mama, Jesus' mama. Possibly interviewed, some Peter and some other folk. John wasn't even there.
True.
The book of John is written so late that it is not written by an eyewitness, but a follower and they just claiming John. Matthew could possibly be the only person who might have been there, and Mark wasn't there. So it's all storytelling, not historical writing. It's storytelling. But they all should get that the same. That should all been the same. Whoever wrote it first, if Mark wrote it first, and then Matthew writes the same thing as Mark, Luke and John should have wrote the same damn thing. Not writing something different. Because all you're creating is disturbance. Unless Luke and John didn't have Mark and Matthew available to them. Because it wasn't like those were the only scrolls that was, walking around the community at the time. There were plenty of gospels, during that time frame. So that it does leave that open, that maybe Luke and John didn't see Mark and Matthew. But it's still a problem if it's all supposed to be God inspired.
Well, you just said it yourself. If it's God inspired, we can't get away from, unfortunately, the discrepancies that come with God inspiration. I can have a dream about one thing and then wake up and interpret it totally different from the way that was intended for me to see it because of my own experiences, filtered beliefs, views, and opinions at the time that may or may not even recognize what I'm saying as, okay, this is what it is, but then I'm going to tell it a different way, how I see it, how I process it, and then how I verbalize what I just saw. And it may not even be completely accurate. So when you say God inspired, it doesn't mean it's God, what's the word I'm looking for? It's perfectly factual information. All the people in the Bible were inspired by God to talk about aspects of God's nature. But the inspiration does not mean 100% accuracy. It'd be nice if God himself, in my opinion, wrote the Bible, then we'd be like, this is it. But he worked through people. And as you know, people, we have flaws. We have lapses in memory.
That's
what it is.
That to me is a cop-out, a weak excuse. Oh. And here's why. Because you're nullifying the power of who you're calling God when you say that, well, God inspired them to write this down, but yet because man is flawed, then the power of man's flaw is more powerful than this God's inspiration. So to me, it's a cop-out. If God is so powerful, how is it that man's flaw is more powerful than this God's inspiration? That would be like if when I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps and I got this Lance Corporal and I tell this Lance Corporal what orders to give or what to write on how to write their SOP, their standard operating procedure. That's better. When I tell them to write their SOP, and I'm giving him the instructions of how to do his job with the SOP. But then he goes off and starts writing SOP in any old kind of way that he want to write it or write it in the way that he want to do it. Then he is usurping my authority when I told him that in order to process your DASF and writing a correction to S9T, you have to input, the NSN of the number. But then he decides that no, when I work the DASF, I'm not going to S9T. I'm going to go to GSA and I'm not going to use the NSN. I'm going to use the serial number. If he has that power to usurp mine and then put out the wrong information so that whoever comes next is doing the job incorrectly and messing up the system, then that Lance Corporal got more power than me as the sergeant. And I'm not going to allow that bullshit. Because if I saw, and actually this is a true thing that happened, because when I go and I look at the SOP and I see that this Lance Corporal done put in the incorrect information, then I chewed his ass out and made him correct it so that the information stays correct, so that the next person and the next person and the next person are doing the thing right, so that we have greater efficiency. So this guy is so weak, though, that he don't correct his shit. He let the Lance Corporal go off and do what the Lance Corporal wanted to do. Marine Corps would fail in his mission if they allowed bullshit like that. And that's why this God is failing at his mission, because he allowed bullshit like that.
Or that's an interesting point. That's interesting. I like you, man.
So, or
because you use it. I like it. The problem is if a God is real and he gave us free will, then he has to, even for a God, he has to give us the free will. If he's telling us to do one thing and we choose to, but I'm going to do it this way though. I'm going to kind of like switch it. Let me add a little flavor to it. No, I gave it to you like this. Yeah, well, let me go ahead and do it the way I feel. That is the issue, is that because we have free will, he allows us to use whatever information and guidance he gives us. And I can even say from my own personal life, I've gone against knowing, okay, God, I know you told me to do it this way, but I'm going to do it this way. Then I do it a different way. I'm like, oh shit, I should have did it. I should have did it God's way. And we see examples of that in just the story of Moses, how they was hard-headed, they was BSing, they was worshiping golden calves. And God is like, what is this? Y'all going to stay in this desert for the next 40-something years. Y'all keep playing with me. Right. So he's
don't skip the
correcting
part
them.
that he killed people first. Don't skip that
God,
part. Yeah. First,
I'm not entirely
they
convinced
killed
that
3,000 people first before they had to walk around the desert. Don't skip the killing part of this guy now.
Yeah, the crazy, maniacal, tyrannical dictator type. That is also a reason why people get away from God, because he's this evil bad. He's no better than Hitler. Is how people perceive him.
So
That's
why
the
is
God
there
of the
no
Bible.
punishment for misinterpreting his words in the New Testament? Why he ain't
Oh,
killing?
I believe there is.
Why he ain't killing like he did in the Old Testament though? Old Testament, he kill your ass first. He make an example first. Remember when so in the Exodus story that you brought up, 3,000 people got killed for worshiping the golden calf. A whole bunch of people got killed for not for having sex with the Moabite women, but for worshiping their gods. He killed a whole bunch of them. Where are the killing it for disobedience?
I don't think we want that kind of time. God killing off people himself.
But he's the same God. Ain't that what they say?
That's what they say.
The Bible say. He the same in the past, now, and forever. He's a do what I say or I'm gonna kill your ass, God.
Sorry.
And he wasn't waiting for revelations, the judgment. So really, you don't even have free will, because it's either do what I say or I'm gonna kill you. Do what I say or I'm gonna punish you. That's totalitarianism.
I think that's what you're not a tangent at all, but what you're saying, I agree with, and which is why I had an issue with the Bible, because those contradictions, like, oh, he's a loving God, oh, he'll also kill your ass too because he loves you so much. Yeah, that makes sense. Doesn't make no sense. So I was at the edge of, okay, do I go in the completely God is not, this can't be God, God is a bunch of BS or not? Again, it's just this anecdotal, but just prayer. It's like, okay, I know this is not the way they portray you in the Bible. If that's you, you ain't the type of person or entity or whatever I want to even not associate myself with. And what I got back from that was, wow, it was like, you're right. I'm like, what the hell? Okay, that wasn't me. You're right. You're right in the sense that the way I feel about it is also the way God feels about it. In the sense that the way he's portrayed in the scripture as this murderous person who goes and kills people and kills on behalf of others, that's not his nature or character. That, for example, let's use today as an example. How many people, let's say the jihadists, Allah Akbar, right? They're going to killing Israelis because they believe, oh, God is inspiring me to kill these people. God is the one he's telling me to kill my enemies. And so you have people even today who are associating God, his name, and saying, well, it's God that's leading me to do it. But the nature of God is it's impossible for him to do that. And the reason why you are disgusted by it as well as myself, as far as the contradictions, is because it's in your, if God's nature is in you, you should feel disgusted about it because it's not true. That's an example of someone in the Old Testament associating all of these atrocities and killings and maimings and death and sometimes even slavery, especially associated with us, to God. And then we'll
Well,
look at the Bible and say, well, this is what it's saying. I can't get down with that God. God is completely out the picture. I don't
yeah,
think that's quite the answer, though.
I think it is the answer. Oh, well, let me clarify the answer, because just like the Islamic extremists are running up there, the jihadists, the same way you got the Israelites killing the Palestinians and taking their land because they think that they're monstrous God of the Old Testament, that this asshole of a killing God of the Old Testament has the right to do so and gives them their right to genocide and kill the Palestinian people. And I understand what you're saying about your nature. If your nature says that that is wrong, then you know that that can't be that can't live up to the same nature as the God of the Old Testament. Hence the Gnostic movement. The Gnostics said that the God of the Old Testament is the demiurge. He's an evil God who is trying to who trapped your soul on this planet and keeps recycling your soul to keep you trapped so that you don't go and rejoin the Plamora, the true energy of God. Because the demiurge created this earth without the Sophia, without wisdom, but just all ego. And that's how the Gnostics formed. That's what Arius was talking about at the Council of Nicaea. But the Orthodox beat his ass, and well, not all of this. One dude slapped the shit out of him. You know, according to Jerome, slapped him up a little bit. But according to that, that's what the Gnostics say. So there are many people who are Gnostic who are saying that, okay, the God of the Old Testament is not the true God. And then there are people who just say that, you know what, the God of the Bible itself, or the whether you're talking about the Old Testament or the New Testament, because Jesus tells you, you got to follow the Old Testament law. So Jesus worshiped the Old Testament God. But the God may exist, but not the God of the Bible. That's not God. So if a person is saying that, I can understand a little bit better. But to claim that any God, the God that is within the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, the Abrahamic God, put it that way, cannot be separated from any of the atrocity that it has committed, to be able to say that it is God. And you should walk away saying, I just can't accept that. That God is not God. There's something better, something bigger, something greater, something unknown. No book has said. Well, maybe the Tao. The Tao is the only book that may have said it correctly. The Tao describes the way. God is described as the way. And it doesn't put a name to it, doesn't put a description to it. It doesn't give it a personality or nothing like that. It just gives it, it's an energetic flow. And that's about it. And it gives you the good lessons that you should fall into when you get into the flow of the way. No other book really describes a version of God that doesn't have all these human faults. But the God of the Bible, no matter how you slice it, does.
Which, that's the God inspiration that you was talking about earlier. And that doesn't mean that everything like there's obviously a lot of beautiful moments and aspects of God that is exemplified in scripture. But then you see a lot of the atrocities and say, wait a second now. This sounds a lot like us and the kind of shit we would do. And it is, which is our fallen nature. It is the state of our being, but yet still we have free will. So even as great as God is, even as great as Jesus was, if you believe he existed or not, let's assume his words were true. A lot of people read the red letters and say, I can get down with this for the most part. But then even then that's filtered through how the person who's recalling that information, because it's not like they have, recorders or voice recorders. Okay, this is what he said exactly. And then they can transcribe it. No, it's like, okay, this is what I believe he said. This is what I felt like he said. This is how I interpret he said it. I'm going to write it down the way. And then you have all these filtrations in addition to the different languages, the Greek, the Hebrew, and I think the Roman language. It's a lot of things. And then English. So you have 4 different translations, how the person perceived what the person said in scripture. it's a lot that muddies the waters as to what is God inspired. So I leave it as God inspired, not God truth. And I had to come to that conclusion in order to get closer to God so he can then tell me the truth as far as I know it so far. Because there's going to be some things I go come back 10 years from now and be like, oh, I'm going to refine what I thought he said now that I have more life experience. That's just the way it is for us.
Do you realize that your truth would then be the same as everybody else who has written everything else? You might as well write your own gospel. You might as well just write your own gospel, create your own version of Christianity, because basically what you're saying is that I'm only going to go on what God has inspired in me. And which then what you can't help but do is look at the writings within the Old Testament and New Testament, and whatever jives well with your sensibility and culture today is the part you're going to accept as the true inspired word of God. This is why some Christians can't accept slavery in the Bible, that God approves slavery. God of the Bible approves slavery because it doesn't work with their sensibilities. And why would their God approve that? So God has told me, has inspired me to see it differently. You might as well just create your own version, your own religion of it. I don't think you're getting closer to God. I think you're getting closer to yourself and understanding yourself, but you're understanding it through a lens of pretty much pseudo Christianity.
Lorenzo, I 1000% agree with you on that, because I don't have a Muslim or Buddhist framework. If I did, I would be using language that refers to how the Buddhists speak or how the Muslims speak or how even the atheist speaks. I'm coming from even actually more so Judaism, because that's how I was raised half my life up until recently. So it's kind of like an amalgamation of things, how I filter it. Am I getting closer to myself as well as you getting closer to you? But it does feel more comfortable. I understand why a lot of Christians hang on to taking themselves out of the picture and saying, this is all God, this is all Jesus. But in reality, I'm probably close to the way you believe it, in that it's trying to get us closer to understanding ourselves. And in that, then we can understand God more. Because in our true selves won't be like the way that you read how God is supposed to be in the Bible in terms of the aspects that we recognize within ourselves as evil, right? The raping, the pillaging, the stealing, the looting. And then it seems like God is sanctioning these things. Go ahead and take these women and go ahead and rape them and go ahead. And it's like, you sure God told you to do all that? Right? It's like the nature of God. If there is a God, but within yourself, that doesn't feel right. So it's us evolving to the point where we can then have a greater understanding of whatever inspiration that we get from God. And then you come to realize, oh, that was all me. That was all me 100%. Wasn't God involved in that at all, but it was me thinking God was involved and me making this decision to cheat this person, making a decision to hurt this person, to yell at this, whatever that we associate to God. And honestly, that's just a personal journey, is it? There's no right or wrong way of looking at it, but it doesn't feel good to say that because we want something that's compartmentalized, something this feels safe because this is Christian, this is Christianity, this is Muslim, this is it, whatever. And I want to just kind of fall in that framework, because now if I have to think about myself and my own mortality and my own morality, now that's an issue. So yeah, I like that perspective. Actually, I would agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah. And actually, that's why I throw this God out. I throw the whole God out the window, because we stand on the shoulders of history. And standing on the shoulders of history, we can see that if you think about it, if you were born 200 years ago, Black man in America, you would have been taught and would have accepted and agreed that the God of the Bible placed you in slavery, and that you're supposed to be in slavery, and that you're supposed to listen to your master, whether they're good or bad. You would have not have said, well, that don't sit right with me, because I believe in this. I believe in this God, and I know one day there's going to be freedom, and one day I can get to heaven. And you would have accepted that and lived your whole life thinking you were doing the right thing by God. So you wouldn't have been getting closer to self, because you would have been submitting to the will of this God that has been forced on you and forced on your grandparents and so on and so forth. And if you were to go back even further and you were a woman, you go back to 200 BCE and you are essayed by a man and you have not been betrothed, and when he pays your father, so we get into Judaism, he pays your father 50 pieces of silver, the bride price, you would have, as a woman, said, yep, and I got to marry this man who raped me, and I got to give him children, and he can never divorce me, and he always got to make sure he take care of me. So you would have to live with your rapist, and in your mind, you would be thinking, that's what God wants. Getting closer to God. See, when I look at it from a historical standpoint, I have to say, hell no. This God is need to be thrown out. I don't need to reconcile this God or find the good pieces and cherry pick that and make that who I am. No, I just throw the whole fucker out because he ain't worth keeping. I ain't a little bit.
You say this God, which is, we talk about the God of the Bible or the Islam text, whatever, similar. But you say this God, which does that imply that if this God that you do describe, okay, this God that's not in the Bible does exist, is that a type of God you would get behind? Is that a type of God you would praise and worship and say, now this makes sense to me because this is all the elements that is the opposite of what you read about who he's supposed to be in the Bible.
You saying the God of the Bible, if that God existed, would I get behind it?
It was the God you just described in the sense that he's nothing like how, or if he's anything opposite of how he's portrayed in scripture in a negative light, if he was the opposite of that, would that be a God that you would say, oh, okay, now this makes sense. This resonates with me personally. Or would you say, regardless if he's of the one in the Bible, and regardless if he is like this positive, loving being that I personally believe that he is from my experience, then regardless, left or right, positive or negative, he's not a God to believe in. Is that your position?
If you could, if there was proof that there was gods or another God, if there was proof that there's a God and he's opposite of the God of the Bible in those respects, then yeah, I get behind him. Am I going to worship? Fuck no, because any God that requires worship is insecure. I can't deal with an insecure God, so I wouldn't. But would I say they're God? Sure, if they can prove that they are God. But if I'm understanding you correctly, is that what you're saying? Because the God of the Bible, if that joker proved to be real, there's no way I could ever get behind that God. I tell him kiss my ass.
I cannot. That's a leap that's a bridge too far I won't cross. Because and a lot of Christians do, they have to justify it. You might say I justify certain things. You're right about that. I probably do. But then there's a certain level of justification they do where they say, well, God was justified in killing these people or maiming these people or saying that it's okay to rape these people or enslave these people. I can't go that far. Maybe there's like, I'm scaling back, perhaps. Maybe even so much to the point where I may one day become an atheist myself and be like, oh, I don't see that happening, but I don't know. But yes, you say it's something that they have to, is it something they have to prove, or what would be sufficient proof for you? Because I don't think there's anything or any scripture or any words or letters from anybody else who had a personal revelation or inspiration from God. I don't think there's not enough books you could read that could convince you. So what would be the proof or burden of proof for you to be like, you know what? I'm not gonna worship you, but I respect the hell out of you because that makes sense.
I'm with you. And you know what? You asked me that question yesterday and I forgot to answer it. If you were, I don't know if you recall, but after this one, I'm gonna have to let you go because I got other people waiting. Here's my thought on it. If a being is God, that being should know what is required for me to believe in or accept that being. I don't know what that is. So I can't say if he showed up sitting next to me right now, then I'm going to believe it. Because if he showed up next to me right now, first thing I'm thinking is an alien. I ain't thinking God. It's an alien. And I want to know, can I go with you? Because I don't want to be here on Earth. Earth can go to hell. So I'm thinking alien. I'm thinking hologram. I'm thinking, 3-letter organizations from different governments or our government. So that's not gonna be proof enough. But whatever it is, I don't know. Bring me into this different existence and show me. I don't know. I don't know. But that God should know. If he's God, he, she, it is God, it should know. And then it should do whatever it needs to do to make me realize that they are God. But it should also know that if it requires me to worship it, it's going to be not God, as far as I'm concerned. Because if I was God, that would be like a parent requiring their children to worship them. Not going to do it.
Because that's not free will. The worship comes if you actually have that relationship with God. You want to do it. So if he has to force you to do it, that negates the free will aspect. But as far as
even
him coming to you that makes sense to you, you're right about that. He'll come to you in a way that makes sense to you. For me, it's been dreams. He cannot reach me through this, like me talking to you, like in a waking state. It's through dreams. It's like, oh snap, that's crazy. But that's how I see it. So I guess maybe that's why my father named Joseph.
I've had the dreams. I've had the mushroom trips, and no, this guy don't show up. I show up. My connection with the energies of Earth show up. So, but let me let some other people get on here. But I appreciate you coming up, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Wait a minute, did it freeze? All right. So good. I'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, Yosef. I know some people came on, some people jumped off, and so I don't know the order, but I'm going IG and then over to TikTok with Stumpy Nubs. IG.
What's that? And can y'all hear me? I'm at the plantation today.
We can all hear.
Good. Yeah. Of course, I kind of was reading those contradictions. I'm glad you brought that up about the last words because I've always gotten into like arguments about that, and
Mhm.
because I've always heard that, yeah, my God, why has thou forsaken me? And then I've heard people say, it is finished was his last word. So thank you for that actual textual breakdown on that today. I
My
appreciate
pleasure.
that. One thing is that I noticed about I was in the chat and listening to the conversation, and
Speak
in
up.
every I said what I do notice is that everyone in the chat and then in the conversation, and even with the last caller, which I did appreciate his honesty, by the way. Um, it's that it's always the need to want to worship something. And I think when I hear that, it's like I think about the chakra natures of man, the chakra, the longing of wanting the affection. And
Mhm.
when you said that about, oh yeah, like I know it's not a God if it needs to be worshipped. Because to need to be adorned and to be loved and to be appreciated, all of those things are human characteristics. All of those things. So when you have any being or anything that wants you to adorn it, that is an emotionalism. That is an emotional characteristic. Anything that wants to be loved, that is an emotional characteristic. That's not anything that's divine. And this is why I always come back to uh, the ideals of God and the Christian of God is the human emotion deified. Religion is human emotion personified and then deified. So you know that you're dealing with a living sentient being's ideal of perfection once you have the requirements of jealousy. God is not a man that he should lie, but yet he's a jealous God. See, the writer has written it, the writers, they've
Mhm.
written it in a way intentionally for you to be able to resonate with it and at the same time not question it. So, like you were saying, I'm like, yes, if I was a person instituting an idea, of course, after I've conquered you, I want you to think that I'm love. And another thing that we do with this Hebraic, I don't understand why we do it is why does everybody seem to think that all God is good? All gods are good. I don't understand how much Greek mythology you need to watch. I don't know if y'all even watch any fantasy, DC, Marvel universes. At what point we as a human species are going to accept that the ideal of gods are not all good? I don't understand how people used to do this how people are still doing this because they want to believe that their innermost thoughts, that their innermost being is this perfectly good divine thing. That's why it's gain understanding. Everybody, every time I listen to you have a conversation with this coach, everybody ends up having to go to, well, that's just the God of my understanding. So
Right.
is it the understanding of what the text says, or is it the understanding that you get from your inner personal thoughts and perspectives?
Mhm.
Because it can't be both. Because I
It,
tell
it,
people all the time, well, it can't be both, especially when you didn't come up with the idea. I ask people all the time, so did you do like the great Buddha and the Brahma, and did you meditate underneath an Ignatius tree and receive something totally different? No, you're using words and terms, and I'm being sarcastic when I say that's only been instituted for maybe 1,000 or 1,200 years. That's not long in comparison to all of the other institutions of spiritualizing beliefs. What you were gonna say?
no, I agree with you that people do have this need for God to be good, and after the Zoroastrian influence impacted the Israelites, because before that Yahweh was not considered to be this all good God.
Yeah,
He had his human like quality because that was the normal thought process of any God for any religion.
right.
But after the Zoroastrian experience of seeing them having Ahura Mazda and Agramenya, the perfect good God and this perfectly evil God, right? So,
Uh-huh.
and both being at the extremes of the pole, this mentality came into play. And then as we moved into more scientific understanding and moved God away from being the expressions of nature, and really that's,
Uh-huh.
God started as an expression of nature because Yahweh was a storm deity. But as they moved away from God being an expression of nature, and of course, nature does shit, and people put their own, this was a good storm and this is a bad storm
Uh-huh.
situations in there. So if God is the storm, then he's good and he's bad. But as we moved away from God being a representation of nature, the all good and all bad has to now be a point, be the point that people stick with. And then this worshiping thing, what you reminded me of when you said the worshiping thing? You
Uh-huh.
remember in the Black Panther movie? No, not in Black Panther, in Infinity War, when they came to Wakanda for the last battle,
Uh-huh.
and when they was getting off the plane, Rhodey told the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, he was like, "Should I bow?" He was like, "Yeah, you got to bow. He's a king." And then when he came to bow, he was like, "No, we don't do that here," because
You,
what they sneakily showed was that royalty, people of power, want to show their dominance by making you bow to them. But it
uh-huh.
takes an enlightened mind to say that I don't need you to bow to me. That you ain't got to do all them pomps and circumstances to
Uh-huh.
recognize my authority. I don't need your bowing, whereas other nations require you to bow, right?
Yep.
This God of the Bible is like all them other nations that require you to bow, whereas the Wakandan, what's it? Shit. Black Panther was like, nah.
Chinchilla. Yeah.
T'Challa was
Uh-huh.
like, I don't need you to bow. I'm secure within myself and
Right.
my position that I don't need you to bow.
Right.
That's not, we don't do that here.
Right.
The God of the Bible is not that secure within themselves. The God of the Bible is frail and insecure and
Right.
requires that worship. So, but people want to bow, though. That's the other end of that. They
Yeah,
want to bow. They
yeah,
want to feel, they want something to be subservient to. That's why
yeah.
people still get caught up with royalty. To me, royalty don't mean shit. You piss and shit the same way I do. So you ain't special. There ain't nothing special about you. But people desire that. That's why they love celebrities and all these
Come on.
athletes and singers and stuff. They fawn over them as if they the greatest things in the world. But that person
And
piss and shit the same way I do. They get boogers in their nose the same way as I do. So they ain't nothing special about them. And this God of the Bible get boogers in his nose the same damn way as I do.
you know what kind of gave it away for me? Like it's just like, because government and politics and religion are, unfortunately, I wish they weren't one. I wish we lived in a reality so it wasn't. And like the thing what kind of was a striking thing to me, because before we had, we recognized trans people. Whenever we heard he, him, and his, the first thing that come to my mind is like, even though with me being a same gender loving, because of my spiritual practice into shamanism and Reiki work growing up and stuff like that, my daddy, well, my mom died when I was 6, so I'm a single father. So I don't know if y'all know that. So we had her altar and her water and everything like that. And it never struck, and I noticed it, and I was like, hold on, we honor our ancestors,
Mhm.
both male and female. You know what I'm saying, in my family. And I was just like, well, hold on. When I look at the 1611 King James Bible, I see a lot of masculine pronouns. I see he, him, and his. And before the recognition of trans people, when you deal with he, him, and his, well, you're dealing with penis. There's no slicing about it. So if you're dealing with, this is why it mirrors because people can see the line of how the institution of their life. They think they have to bow because even us men, because I tell people all the time, I talk about patriarchy. I say, you think just because I'm a male, I'm supposed to just be okay with patriarchy when it's tribal in its nature, and I'm not part of the winning team of nation of men that it was made for? So I think a lot of people, especially us males, we fall into that trap because even though with us saying that, oh, we're all men, we still have to, if in a certain degree now, not a minority one, but in a patriarchal democracy, we're still underneath the rule or the ideals or the influence of men. And I
Mhm.
think that translates to a lot of people. They want to bow so bad because, well, we know we have to bow to Uncle Sam ugly ass. We
Yep.
know we have to. When I said to my Christian friends, when I read every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess, I'm not thinking about Jesus. I'm thinking about the government. I'm thinking about the laws of the land. I'm thinking about the institution of the religion. So yes, even though I might not believe in Jesus, I live in a law in a land that is run by fit principles. So even without me having to confess with my mouth that I believe, I still have to navigate a society where people do believe and have influence, and sometimes have influence over my life beyond my own will. I'm not saying I don't have control over my own life. I just understand in the grand scheme of things that these people around me often get too over determined. And that's
Mhm.
why I tell for people, you really don't have faith if you have institution. It doesn't take faith for you to follow something that is assured through affirmed through your culture. It's baked into your tribalism, into your ways. That shit doesn't require faith. In my opinion, to have faith is to be able to go within yourself and outside of yourself beyond what anyone else has told you what it is. Because you don't have to have
Mhm.
faith. I can easily deduce, well, if I have this belief and this is giving me connections to my livelihood and benefits, that's not faith. I tell most of these Christians, I said, if you take away the institution in your community, most of you would not believe in this shit. If
No.
it wasn't institutionalized, you wouldn't follow it. Start following something, and I'm gonna let y'all go something to go. When people say who they spiritual and all that shit, In my opinion, you'll become that once you stop deifying your emotions, once you stop putting what other people's thoughts are in your mind and deifying it to yourselves. And even when you get to yourself, I don't need to think I'm a goddamn God. I don't want to be a God. You know what I'm trying to be right now? A husband, a brother, maybe I'm a father even though I have no children. I see great honor in saying I'm an uncle. I'm a godfather. I'm a husband. I'm a
Mhm.
lover. There are so many other things that you can honor your existence in this thing we call life, that dash part. I can't tell a bitch where your sunset and your sunrise, and neither do I care. But
Right.
that dash in between the lines, that is what people are going to say who you are when you yet live. That is going to be the legacy of what people say who you be. That's going to be what you leave behind and what you have contributed. So right now, I want people to stop giving a damn about where you go and where you came from. Focus on that dash because that dash is the most important part of your story. I'm gonna holler at y'all later.
All right. Appreciate you. And I'm agreeing with what IG was just saying. Uh, if you really, really think about it, and I thought about this. Think about this often, actually. If I had made certain decisions in my life, like the decision to accept the job in Germany and not re-enlist in the Marine Corps, then my daughter Sydney, who was already born, can't say about the other ones because I don't know if they would have been born, but they would not have been born because the conditions for their birth would not have been there. Uh, Maybe some other children would be born, but I know Sydney was born. If I would have stayed in Germany, my daughter Sydney would have a completely different personality than she has right now because she would have grown up uh, in the institution of the German culture. She would have grown up speaking German and English, and since we was in Stuttgart, she probably would have learned Turkish or learned Swahili or French or all of it. And she would have been influenced by the culture of Germany and would do things the way the German culture does things because that would have been her institution. And she would have had a German / slightly American institution. And with me being her father, who don't really give shit about American customs and ideas, uh, it's no telling who she would be right now, how her mind would be. But we all have been institutionalized, and we have to make the decision if we're going to stay institutionalized or dig deep within ourselves. Stumpy Nubs. Stumpy Nubs, you're on? Stumpy. TikTok. Stumpy. Stumpy. Stumpy going once. Stumpy Nubs going twice. All right. Oh. Is it Bishop Nubs?
Quite possibly.
It is. I just heard your voice. Whatever.
What's up, brother?
How you doing? Been a minute.
Yeah, been busy. I just got onto this whole TikTok thing. Looking at how I want to present myself as a channel creator.
Right.
Going around looking at how everybody else is doing it, picking out the babies and, emptying the bathwater.
Gotcha. Wait. You kicking out the babies and you're being the bathwater?
Picking out the babies.
Picking out,
and
okay.
letting the bathwater go.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So what do you think about the subject matter there?
Well,
Enlighten us.
I think that each story individually could be a potential reality. However, because there are 4 contrary stories,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem that it is cohesive enough in order to merit, well, this evidence-based truth.
Right.
Because if you have 4 different ways of looking at the story, you know, there's an end result, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and when they're, you know, I hear the story constantly, well, that's because they were standing in different places. Well, not if you read the story. Or stories.
Right. Standing in different places. There's a cross. It's right there. There's one damn hill. But go ahead.
Yeah. The angel's inside, the angel's outside. His clothes were radiating. His clothes were just white.
Right. Now, that's the resurrection part. But yeah, even in the resurrection part, this story, and that's why if I did the resurrection and the crucifixion, there are just so many contradictions and differences within all the story. That's why I just did the crucifixion today.
And in all fairness, I mean, I understand that this is along those same lines, but in final thing about the resurrection, I would say that whole zombie apocalypse in Matthew just still boggles my mind.
Okay, but don't get into that because that's what I'm talking about tomorrow.
I'll just mention it just as a teaser.
Mm-hmm.
No, the crucifixion story, though, like, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. There's not any writings from any of the Romans that say, hey, here's this Jewish zealot that, you know, was like, there's just not enough there.
Yeah, the only thing about it that you're ever going to have is from the biblical accounts, because the Roman historians and the Romans themselves didn't care about Jesus. He was just one of plenty of messiahs, so-called messiahs, that Pilate executed just in Pilate's time. You know, before Rome was like, Pilate, you're doing too much.
Right. I would just say there's enough contrary and controversial evidence that we can't say it didn't happen, but we sure can't say it for sure happened. Because, like, the other thing that I hear too is on these platforms is the historical narrative and this and that, and I just question, you know, where we're getting our information. And they'll say, you know, even atheist scholars would say that he exists. Well, based off of who's funding, you know, if they say God doesn't exist, will they be totally removed, and would they have been at that time when it was going on? Because I'm pretty sure the Catholic Church had a lot to do with who's who with the Who's bill.
Yeah, like, let me give you an example. Bart Ehrman will say that a historical Jesus existed. I think if Bart Ehrman was not, and this is my guess, I don't know, but if he was not teaching at, I think, UNC,
right,
and that's where his money comes from, where the bulk of his money is coming from UNC, I don't think that Bart Ehrman would say that there was a historical Jesus. He may say that there were plenty of Messiah types, plenty of people claiming to be the Messiah every Passover, but I don't think that he would identify a historical Jesus, but recognize the multitude of people that were being crucified during that time frame, claiming to be the Jewish Messiah. But UNC would be like, probably kick him to the curb if he said that this whole thing is bullshit.
Just like then, as it is now, follow the money. Where's the money at? You know, who's getting robbed blind because they're not willing to look at who's robbing them?
Yeah. Exactly. And it's just like, if I was a school teacher, so there was a one point in my life I started to become a school teacher, right? I was offered a job twice in my life, 3 times, to be a school teacher. If I would have taken any of those 3 opportunities, y'all would never have heard of me, because I know that this would have wrecked that. This wouldn't allow for that. Or if I wanted to be a politician, this probably wouldn't allow for me to be a politician.
Because you're expressing honesty.
Yeah. And it goes against the grain of the majority of people in the world. The majority of people in the world believes that there is some damn sky daddy going on, and the world that I live in right now believe the sky daddy is the biblical sky daddy. So I wouldn't make it as a politician, most likely. Only quiet atheists makes it as politicians or school teachers, those types of positions. So you're right, follow the money.
Yep.
The money will tell you if somebody's telling the truth or not. And when it comes to these Bible gospels, well, follow the money and the opportunity of power for a new burgeoning religion.
Yep. And look at how much that particular religion, it's hard to get these things not confused. Look at how much control, because the government has control of your body per se.
Mm-hmm.
And the religion has a control of your soul per se. Now you're tricked out of your reality in full.
Yeah. I mean, these guys who wrote this were no different than the mega preachers that you have today. They were utilizing something that they could grow their authority on. That's all Paul is. He's somebody who, either he's an agent of Rome or he's somebody who saw an opportunity. And
you
since
mean Flavius?
yeah. And if you think about it, he's writing this at a time frame where Rome controlled your body.
Yep.
And religion controlled your soul.
Yep.
So he wrote a Romanized, Roman influenced version of this new Christianity religion, so that he stayed within the confines of the controlling governments and those who had power. Because
learn nothing and be happy with it.
Yeah, he was Joel Osteen and these people, like a champ.
No, the difference is Joel Osteen had a facility that he could actually lock the doors. It's technology that has changed. That's it. Man has not changed.
Mm-mm.
We've been having these same arguments since the beginnings. Oh, there is a God, there isn't a God. There is a God, there isn't a God.
Right.
What God is it? It's my God. No, it's your God. No, it's my God. And the reality is most people believe their sky daddy is talking to their earthly daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And now their earthly daddy can't do any wrong because their sky daddy is talking to their earthly daddy.
Exactly. And
I'm not talking about their father. I'm talking about their daddy, the one they follow.
Yeah. And he always conformed to who was ever in control.
Absolutely.
Judaism conformed to Assyrian. But Judaism conformed to Assyrian control and started changing Yahweh to merge him with El. Then they conformed to Babylonian, continued the migration to El, and then getting rid of Asherah. And then they conformed to the Greeks, and then conformed to the Persians, and then conformed to the Greeks, and then to the Romans. So it's just conformity. That's all it is. They're just conforming. And when they wrote these stories of this crucifixion, it's more conformity. Miss Fifi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm listening, and at one point I wanted to come in. I know you only have one panelist up there, and this is not a debate. And you know how I feel about the whole thing.
Right.
And it was so funny because I was going to mention what the other caller talked about was the apocalypse of what happened in Matthew 27, 51 verse where the temple was the veil in the temple was ripped and people it was an earthquake and people started coming out their graves and I mean
oh yeah, that is part of the crucifixion. That's part of the crucifixion, or is that part of the resurrection?
I think that was part of the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when that happened, you know, the whole earth had just opened up or something of that nature. Anyway, it's just kind of weird because I was like saying, you know, are we really that narcissistic within ourselves to think that, you know, God would crucify his son just for our sins? It's like, can't you get it together? Can't you get it together yourself? Do I have to, you know, crucify my son? And then why at that time in that particular way to save sins? I mean, it sounds like it's always a bloody mess going on. Like, you know, sacrifices and hell and, you know, just all of that. It's just weird. It's just weird why there's so many versions of it in the Bible. But what is the real reason? Why? Why the crucifixion story of Jesus? Why does it have so many flaws?
Right. It shouldn't have any flaws whatsoever if it is a true story. And then, you know, I've always the whole idea of a crucifixion and God having to kill his son, which is supposed to be himself as a sacrifice, is not really a sacrifice, because 3 days later, according to the story, he's supposed to be up in heaven again, up in heaven. But sin is still going on, right? So when you look at the atonement, the atonement sin, the atonement sacrifice back in, what is that, Leviticus, I think, the scapegoat annually is killed for the sins of the people every year. And this is supposed to happen in perpetuity. When is Jesus being sacrificed every year? Because people are still sinning. They've been sinning for 2,000 years. He's not taking on nobody else's sin because he's supposed to be on the right side of God and supposed to be God. So how can God take on sin if he's up in heaven? And there ain't supposed to be no sin up there.
I don't know.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
And they are and this God is just it's a blood sacrifice. It's a blood cult, right? There has to be blood involved. You got to kill something.
Right.
And that makes no sense. If I'm God, at least the Muslims say that Allah can just forgive you. You ain't got to go through no blood sacrifices. You ain't got to kill people. You ain't got to destroy shit. If you've done something wrong towards Allah, you just pray and ask for forgiveness and then do right, and bam, you forgiven. That's it. You good. But Christians put so much. What do you say?
I said, but that's how it is. But I guess you can do it repeatedly and be forgiven.
But see, that was one of my questions. How can Jesus take on my sin right now if he's in heaven and he is God, and God cannot be where there is sin? He can't take on my sin. And for a while as a Christian, I came to the conclusion that God is not taking on my sin, that I have to repent for my sins here on earth. And I'm supposed to do it based on the law, which is to sacrifice some animals. But then Jesus advocates for me on the day of judgment for whatever sins I haven't repented from. So that was my mental gymnastics when I was still in the latter part of my Christianhood, is that he'll take on my final sins in judgment, whatever I didn't repent for. But then I started to think, how can he take on my final sins if he's supposed to be in heaven? That sounds more like the story of Horus advocating for you in front of Anubis and the 13 elders if your heart is heavier than the feather of my eye. So it takes on that Egyptian kind of storyline at that point, which is just another borrowed story.
Yes.
instead of it being something different
Yes.
that identify him as God.
Yes.
Uh,
So, what, kind of like, what's the beauty of the cross with Jesus hanging there?
right. None. It's just it's the dying Messiah motif, a motif that had already been spoken of culturally, known in the Greeks, known in the Persians, known in the Romans, and every other culture of the day. Somebody is taking on my sins, and they are the Messiah. Which is not even the Jewish Messiah. The Jewish Messiah is supposed to sit on the throne of David, reestablish the sacrifice of the Levitical priest, and they're supposed to have sacrifice in perpetuity. And the descendants of the Messiah sits on the throne of David for the rest of earth, the rest of the time that earth exists, and all nations fall up under Israel. So he didn't fulfill none of that. So he doesn't even fit. But it's just like he L. Ron Hubbard did the whole thing, created a new religion.
Yes,
Scientology.
I got a hold of some of that literature, and I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started examining, well, why would you believe this? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have believed something else.
Yeah. Might as well believe Scientology.
Yes. So why would I not believe in this? It's just like the new thing to believe.
Yeah, might as well believe that some aliens was in the side of a volcano and created everything, and you got to get audited and pay all that money.
Yes.
You may as well, matter of fact, you may as well believe in Mormonism, and that you got to be turned into a white person in order to have an immaculate marriage, so that you can go on and create your own earth and your own children.
I got to do all of that.
Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing about these religions. New ones come up, people believe them, and that's all the Jesus myth is. It's a new version of Judaism that happened during a time frame where people just frankly got tired. Well, good afternoon, sun. I don't know what that is, but thank you for the big sun thing. But you got this situation where the Jews were particularly tired of waiting on a Messiah and kept seeing all these failed messiahs. So a lot of Jewish people went over to it because of that. But then the Romans also, the Flavian dynasty, what Nubs was alluding to, they needed to shut down all these Jewish revolts. So change the story. Let's go ahead and say that the rule of the Messiah is a rule that's going to be ethereal and not material. That the throne of David is in heaven, that the sacrifice in perpetuity is Jesus in perpetuity. And there is a political opportunity there for the Flavians to stop the Jewish revolts, because they were disrupting, especially they were disrupting in Jerusalem and disrupting in Alexandria, Egypt. And those were major trade hubs. Mm-hmm. So they were messing up the money for the Romans. Wow. And you can't mess up the money. You mess up the money, that ain't gonna work. Like any other, I'm not trying to be political in America. Any other protests throughout other presidencies, if they didn't disrupt the money, it wasn't met with much resistance from the government. But if it messed with the money, now you get resistance from the government. Like all the civil rights, the different variations of leadership during civil rights, the three main ones who was messing up the money was your Nation of Islam, the SCLCU, and the Black Panthers. So those three leaders had to die or be jailed because they were messing up the money. Mm-hmm. You can't mess up the money.
Can't mess up the money.
Yeah. Now, what we're seeing today, you ain't messing up the money. This is just somebody's ego. but you're messing up the money. You know, the Christians, the Jews were messing up Rome's money. So they had to flip this and make Christianity.
Oh yeah, because the Romans, I mean, yeah, they had their own system of money. You had to exchange money with them in order for them to accept it.
And if you research the 100 to 200 years after Christianity started in Alexandria, Egypt, because that was the main money push for the Eastern Roman Empire, it was the Jews who were still being persecuted in Alexandria because their revolts was messing up the Roman money. You know, especially at a time frame where the Roman Empire was fracturing between the Eastern and the Western Roman empires. And the Eastern wanted to maintain that peace in Alexandria because that was like the major trade hub for the next 200 to 300 years. So they got to get that thing squared away. So, hey, we're going to make Christianity a docile version. Your Messiah has already come. And y'all need to just, and what did Paul write? Whatever government you're born under is the government that God wanted you under. So you need to pray for the leadership and obey the laws of that leadership. Now, if that ain't some mind shit to play on people,
I'm telling you,
I don't know what is. I mean, we kind of seeing that with the whole Christian nationalist movement. Y'all need to just obey what American government under Christianity is telling you to do and stop trying to ask for civil rights. Stop trying to ask for universal health care. Stop looking for reparations and all this stuff and just be happy that you in America.
pretty much.
Because people, the last 20 plus years, people are, the divide between the wealthy and the poor has gotten bigger and bigger. Oh, actually, literally last 40 years plus, it's gotten much bigger than before. And people are starting to feel like something needs to change, you know, and Black people starting to have their Million Man March and want to have their Black Lives Matter. And they don't want to see a whole nother 1960s situation come about, because now not only is there more Black people, there's more Spanish people and more Asian people. You don't want them joining in on another civil rights movement. So, and you got women and you got the LGBTQ. You don't want to see all that mixed together looking for more civil rights. So you got to create division, and then you got to get something that they and force them to fall under it. And the Christian nationalist movement is like the trigger to make people fall under, you know, government rule by extreme Christianity. So he's just repeating what Vespasian and the Flavian dynasty started. It's
just gonna happen over until we get it straight.
I don't know if it's ever gonna get straight. Actually, it's gonna get worse. There's a cycle of society that you can see in history, where you go from a monarchy to some level, to different levels of democracy, and then the democracies fail, and then out of the democracies comes kind of martial law and then chaos and mob rule, and then a leader steps up, and then the monarchy starts back again, and then the monarchy fails because it becomes the nepotism kills that, and it becomes rough on the people, and then we go back into a republic democracy, and then that fails, and mob rule again, and so it's a cycle throughout history. And we're just in that part now where the republics are failing because of the same type of nepotism and power grabs that monarchies always did, that they did. And then so there will be a mob rule at some point. I don't want to be here for it personally.
Well, you never know. It might. Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that because it could be happening right now.
Yeah, but I'm not as nimble to fight as I used to be.
Oh boy. Well, I'm sure you got some power somewhere.
Yeah, I got some things in place.
That's what I know.
You know, some things go down. If things go down, I got to get back to Georgia because that's where all my placements are.
You will be amazed the people in Greenland. They are stacking up on batteries and food items and things of that nature. They're getting prepared for what might happen. I saw that on the news, and I was amazed of how, we don't know what is going on, but we know we in it. And so we just got to live in it. Part of the cycle.
Greenland, the way I see it, if it go down, it's gonna be another Vietnam in a sense.
Oh wow.
Because you're going to have the majority of the American population that is against it, just like they were against Vietnam. The American military for the last 20, 30 years have only been training. The majority have been training for desert warfare. Not a lot of cold weather training. The Marine Corps is the only group that emphasizes cold weather training. So a lot of the Army, Air Force, Navy guys, they're going to struggle with it initially. They'll get over it quickly, but they're initially going to struggle with it. So it would depend on how forceful NATO comes at it as to whether or not it becomes like this long-term battle. Right? But the American public being against it is going to be the biggest issue, because you're just not going to have the majority of citizens supporting it. And the military people are going to be the one to catch hell from it.
Yes. Because they're going to be the victims.
And I know that if I was still in the Marine Corps, I'm not fighting that. I disobey the hell out of them orders. I'm not going into the cold weather and fighting in Greenland. No, I disobey them orders in a heartbeat and take the consequences of whatever it is. Probably defect, because I'm not going to sit there and take the consequences. Actually, I'll defect. There ain't no way I wouldn't do it. Not only because it's wrong and it's unconstitutional, but also I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going to the cold. I hate the cold. I avoided cold weather training successfully. For almost 9 years of my Marine Corps career, I avoided cold.
Oh boy, yeah, cold is something else.
Yeah. Y'all, they don't know. You wasn't sending me up to Maine and Bridgeport in order to learn how to fight in cold weather. I ain't doing that shit. Because I already knew what I would do. I'm going AWOL. But anywho, what's crazy is, if you think about it, the Christian nationalists, they are in full support of this. And part of it is because the Romans told them that you have to support your government, whatever your government says. This is some of the most brilliant writing in the Bible, is to trick the people into thinking that whatever the government, God appointed this government. So they believe that God appointed the current government, right? And they will support whatever they do right now, But it's always interesting. Your party affiliation is actually stronger than their religious belief. Because if this was a Democrat who was doing this, then they would not support it, even though the Bible tells them that they're supposed to.
Right.
So they're hypocritical as hell.
Yes. Very much so.
I'm sorry, on YouTube, Boss lady said that this is why you'll never see a black person climb Mount Everest. We don't do the cold. You right about that one. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a black person climb that much. You got time for that? No.
No.
But
there's other things you could do.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't, like most of the people here, I had to stop following this Bible because all these inaccuracies and contradictions that it has. Why would I put myself in a position to allow others to control me based on the belief in something that's not real, something that's fake as hell? But I'm going to give up my agency for that. No, I'm going to maintain my agency. And America ain't the only place I can live in. And I know how to get out this country on the slick. So I ain't worried about it.
Yeah, it's weird because I was listening to some Israel. What are they?
Oh, the Israelites,
people.
the black Israelites.
Yes, and so they have placed themselves inside the Bible as the slaves. And I was like, if I was playing a movie, why would I want to be a slave? Why would I put myself into a situation like that?
Oh.
God adorned this and this is why this happened. Like we were responsible.
Yeah, because they've been so indoctrinated into the Bible.
Oh my God.
That they have to conform the Bible to fit the narrative of Black American history so that they can then justify their current lifestyle, their current being. And then beyond that, they look at and believe that they will one day own the white people as slaves. So it's going to come around. But the problem is their 400 years is up. It's been up. I think their 400 years was up in 2019 or something like that. Yeah, 2019, their 400 years is supposed to be up. So, all right, I know it's only been, 6 years, going on 7 years here for them to have, but supposedly this guy works in ways where when it was time for Joshua to conquer, he just went about conquering. These jokers ain't conquered shit. They haven't even conquered in a political sense where they've went and taken over the politics of a town and control a town. You know how easy it would be for them to do that? All you got to do, you take 10,000 of them, just 10,000 of them. You can go to a rural town, move in, establish citizenship in that town. And when this midterm comes up, they could take all the offices of that town. They could be the mayor all the way down to the garbage commissioner. But they're not doing it.
No.
They're not doing it because they want to be the victim. They want to be the victim. It's like I said for Black people in general. If Black people really wanted to, Black people can take over the Southeast in all its politics, in almost every position in the Southeast. But we don't. We've been indoctrinated into America. So we don't go and take it over. Nope, we all want to move to Atlanta. Instead of spreading out all over Georgia, ruling the politics of all of rural Georgia, instead of just one city, and Black people would then control Georgia. But we don't do it. There's not a charismatic leader out there who is galvanizing the people to go and move their established community and take over all these cities. But we could. We could.
Yeah, we could.
And most of them are scared. If we go do that, they're gonna burn us down. They're gonna flood us out. This ain't 1931. Shit ain't happen. That's not gonna happen. But So the black Hebrew Israelites, you know, I always tell them they full of shit. We were already here, the pretendingans, they full of shit because all they want to do is talk.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do nothing. And I used to want to do something, but the apathy of people have made me just like, you know what? I'm just going to, I just go to another country. Which is why I am doing things. I have been doing things for the last few years to prepare to get the hell on. I got one more thing to take care of. Yeah, really it's a few things, but only one big thing to take care of. Once that big thing is taken care of, I'm done with y'all. Meaning America. Yeah. Nope. If I was in my 20s and I was thinking this way, I'd been gone.
I think if I was in my 20s, I would have been gone too. Mm-hmm. So enjoying myself in other countries that wasn't so uptight.
Yeah. I was still trying to be a Christian, and I was still trying to be an American back then. But you know, my mindset now, if I was thinking this way, I would have left. I'd have been gone. Oh, my bad. Let me correct. 10 black people have climbed Mount Everest and made it to the summit, and one made it to its peak in 2003. Mm-hmm. Well, we you know, got a couple of them black people trying it.
I know we've climbed it before, but I don't think that's the holiday that most people think about.
Yeah, they different. Them different. Them 10 black folks, they different.
Yeah.
They something ain't right with them. They grew up in Europe or in America or somewhere. I don't know who the 10 are, but I'm just saying.
They just wanted something to talk about when they go to parties.
Yeah. I like thrills, but I don't like them kind of thrills. Ooh, I climb Mount Everest. Nah, bro, I'm good. I swam with the sharks. Nah, I'm good. Gotta do all that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. After that apocalypse verse that I read, and I read it in church, and I said, I've never read that before about this is what's happening, and it's right there in the Bible. And so, do you believe that people got up out of their grave and, I guess went home, not long ago? Hey, I'm home. And they've been, dead for many years.
Now, if all these people got up out of their graves in Jerusalem, because all of it's supposed to happen in Jerusalem, the Romans would have written that down. That's something that the Romans would have recorded, because that's a massive event. That's not something that just Christians or just the writers of the Bible would have written. The Jews would have written it down. The Romans would have written it down. That would have been something, because if I remember there was some flood that happened in South Georgia, and all these caskets was floating around. Wasn't even hundreds of caskets. There was 10, 20, 30 caskets. And people around the world, well, at least around America, knew about them caskets floating around. During Katrina, people knew about them caskets because, they got them mausoleums and shit. But people knew about them caskets floating around during Katrina. So if some people would have been walking around in a ghostly form, some people would have known about it. The Romans would have been like, man, we had the ghost came up. Hey, they might have phrased it in different ways. They may have said, Hades released their graves. They might have given it to their gods or something of that nature, or they would have given it to, oh shit, we sacrificed this dude. There was an earthquake, and then all these dead people was walking around, and you would have seen massive conversions into Christianity if that would have happened.
Right.
But it didn't. You don't see the
That's
conversions.
the only recording of anything like that ever
Mhm.
happened during that time.
And it's only recorded in one gospel.
Yeah,
Somehow the other disciples missed it, and they were all in Jerusalem according to the story,
right.
but nobody else saw.
Something to talk about.
Yeah, heck yeah. I've been talking about that thing. I've been like, shh, man, y'all, that on that day. So I'm believing in Jesus. I'd have believed in Jesus at that point.
I guess that's why people think that they're gonna, they're gonna get up on the last day or whatever, the judgment day, out of their graves and with perfect bodies and be caught up in the sky and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And do you see the apologist writing right there? It happened in New Jerusalem. There ain't nothing in there that says that it happened in New Jerusalem. It said that it happened in Jerusalem, the Roman Jerusalem at that time frame. See, this is that exegesis that they be doing when they read into the scripture something that's not in the scripture. Oh, it happened in New Jerusalem. And if you ain't got the Holy Spirit, you ain't see it. You had to have the Holy Spirit to see it. That's some unadulterated bullshit. Yeah, Matthew's supposed to be the only one who saw it.
Yeah.
And these are spiritual things, and you got to have a spirit to see it. That is such a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
That they utilize in order to try to justify their bullshit.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is.
Yeah, you got to see it in a spiritual way.
Right. So that means that I got to lie to myself to believe this now so that then I can see it. And ain't none of them seen it today. They just believe it. Like all these Christians who claim that, they ain't saw shit. They just believe it and they run with it. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a bunch of bull.
But I dare you to read your Bible.
Yeah, exactly. Because the Bible don't say nothing about no damn New Jerusalem, and that's where they saw it. And New Jerusalem the New Jerusalem doesn't even happen until the book of Revelations happens. And none of that stuff in Revelations has ever happened. There ain't no waters turned to no blood, and the moon hasn't, turned to blood, and the waters haven't been poisoned, and all, and a third of the people ain't died, and all this other bullshit that's supposed to happen before this Jesus come back, before New Jerusalem is established. Because in New Jerusalem, Jesus is supposed to rule for 1,000 years. And so he ain't ruled in it for 1,000 years. When has Jesus ruled the earth for 1,000 years? He hasn't. He can't even rule his own. The Levant hasn't even been ruled by Jesus for 1,000 years.
The what?
The Levant, Israel, Jordan, all that area.
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't even been ruled for 1,000 years by Jesus.
What about Rome?
But that's the thing. Rome didn't rule that area for 1,000 years. They lost control of it to the Ottomans. Like by what, 500-600 years later, they lost control of it so the Arabs took it, and then they ruled it for a while. Then the Crusades happened. They ruled it for a little while. Then the Ottomans, and they went back and forth between the Muslims and the Christians, throughout our modern history, up until we get to now. Now you got the Israelites, these European Israelites who are ruling it. And they've only been there since what, 1947, 46, something like that. So they barely been there 60 years. So, and that ain't Jesus ruling it. That's Abraham. That's how they look at it. They look at it as this is the promise that God made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is not the promise that's made by Jesus.
Well, that's part of the white nationalists, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
influencing what's happening in Jerusalem, the fulfillment of Jesus being in power.
Actually, they're not even looking at it at that point, from that standpoint. They're looking at it from the standpoint of Balaam, where it says that those who bless Israel will be blessed, those who curse Israel will be cursed. So they're only looking at it from that standpoint. They're waiting because they need the third temple to be built before Jesus can come back and then start the 1,000-year rule.
They got some work to do.
Exactly. That's why they was all caught up with the red heifer and all that bullshit, over the last few years, because they want that third temple. It ain't happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So we make up bullshit because they scared of hell. They're more afraid of hell than they are appealing to heaven.
Who says either one?
Their Bible, their New Testament. The Old Testament doesn't speak of heaven or hell at all. It only speaks of Sheol. It is all New Testament that has the whole heaven and hell concept. This is why Jews don't believe in hell. You either cease to exist. Well, now their belief is you cease to exist or you go into Abraham's bosom. There is no heaven or hell, just Abraham's bosom or non-existence at all. They used to have Abaddon, which was kind of a hell place, but they recognized that came from the Greek and the Zoroastrian teachings. So now they just have you cease to exist or you go to Abraham's bosom, which is more Egyptian style.
Yeah, because what's going on with Abraham's bosom?
Because some man go and Abraham, he caressed some dude and held on to him in his arms. I forgot who it was. And so they derived that to be like some kind of low-level heaven. Because you're sitting in the arms of Abraham. And so even Jesus was believing in that, because when he supposedly died, he went and spoke to the prisoners in one version, which is Abaddon, and then in another version, he went and took the people out of Abraham's bosom and took them up to heaven. But that's supposedly where Lazarus was. He was in Abraham's bosom, and the rich man was in Abaddon. So in that parable that Jesus was teaching, it shows that he believed in the Abraham bosom and Abaddon situations. But then he rose them up to a higher level. I think that's in like one of the First and Second Peter or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's in the Gospels, one of the Gospels where he tells the parable. It's in one of the Peters, I think, where he talked to the prisoners and got them out. So
He tells.
Yeah, during his 3 days in the grave.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm. He went and ministered to the prisoners, which is linked to the place of Abaddon. And then in another version, during his 3 days, he was taking the people out of Abraham's bosom, those who had been following the law.
Mm-hmm.
So that's supposedly how that had worked during that time frame. That's, of course, it's all a bunch of mythology, storytelling.
Yeah, because you know what? My great ancestors, they weren't written in the story. They didn't know nothing about what was going on.
Nope. Mine didn't either. But if you listen to them Power Rangers, they'll tell you that your great ancestors are from the tribe of Dan or some bullshit like that. And they had migrated to West Africa, and they had formed the kingdom of Wayuda or kingdom of Judah, because in that instance they'll believe the map of a Portuguese map that says kingdom of Judah, instead of recognizing that Portuguese map wrote kingdom of Judah because it sounded similar to the kingdom was actually called Vayuda, and Vayuda or Wayuda. So it sounded close to Judah. So they put that on the map. And because the Dahomey was fighting against them, and when the Dahomey would kick their ass because they got guns from the Portuguese, and they would sell them as slaves to go to the Americas. But what they don't realize is that most, if not all of those slaves went to the Caribbean and went to South America. They didn't bring the Wayuda tribes to North America. So all them Power Rangers claiming that they from the tribe of Judah because they connecting to Wayuda, they just talking out their ass. And then they'll say, oh, we'll accept this map. But if it's something that goes against that, or you trust in the Edomites, you trust in the white man. It's like, dude, you cherry picking which white people you gonna follow and which white people you ain't gonna follow. And of course, the Moors who are in line with them to a certain degree would be like, well, the Portuguese, those were the Moors. And so, they knew that those were the tribes of Judah.
Oh my goodness. And what does that matter if you the tribe of whoever? What does that matter?
Because they're so indoctrinated into this book and this culture that they can't let it go. So they have to make it fit. They have to make it fit. Instead of just looking at what history shows from both the winners and the losers. You got those African nations in the Gold Coast and the west coast of Africa who are saying, yeah, all right, some of our ancestors fought wars against each other. There was no united Africans. And then the white man came and just took all of them. Some of them traded people for guns. They fought battles against each other. The same way Europeans fought wars against each other. The same way Asians fought wars against each other. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, they got colonized. And then they got snatched up when they were colonized. They got the buildings where the slaves were being held and being trained. It's not some far-fetched history that was created in order to subjugate black people so they wouldn't know where they came from. No, the Europeans didn't give a shit about where African people came from.
Right.
They didn't care about African history. So why would they? So it wasn't we cared about it so much that they had to destroy it. No, they just simply didn't care.
Right.
They only cared about themselves, which is what most nations do. Most nations only care about themselves. When the Chinese invaded Japan, they didn't give a shit about the Japanese and their history and their culture. And then when Japan invaded China, they didn't give a shit about the Chinese and their history or their culture.
Right.
Yeah, that's just conquest. That's just imperialism and how it works. Mm-hmm. Humans. That's just how humans work. So, anyway.
Yes, they want power, not peace.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's the way it still goes that way. Mm-hmm. Everybody want power and no peace. Right. That's why these Christians are mad at the monks. Well, some of these Christians.
They're mad at the monks.
Some of them are, not all of them. Most Christians.
People walking around.
Yeah, most Christians support the monks. But you got them few. Especially like that black man who's been following them, harassing them. Yeah.
What they did?
Oh, according to a few black people and a few white people, they are trying to spread Buddhism, and peace only comes from Jesus.
They just walking.
Mm-hmm.
Saying nothing to nobody. Somebody say something to them.
Which is a common thing. In other countries, Buddhist monks have walked for peace when they see that a country is kind of like falling apart. Mm-hmm. And they have done this in other countries. This is just the first time they really did it in America. And the egotism of America says that no, we can't have that shit. At least these few people who've been protesting the monks.
They come in peace.
Mm-hmm. Christians, some Christians can't have peace. Yeah, some Christians can't have peace unless it comes through their religion. They just can't do it.
But the weird part is, what kind of peace do they offer?
No, subjugation. All their peace is through subjugation. There is no form of Christian peace that has not come through subjugation and murder and killing people. It all comes through subjugation. There isn't any.
And that's the flaw, the big flaw of the crucifixion. It didn't work.
All it did is help to create a narrative that formed this religion that has done nothing but brought destruction to the planet. That's it, just destruction. Shit, if they had followed Dionysus, we'd all be drinking wine and out in the woods getting our freak on. That's I'm just saying. If it was Dionysus, we'd just be drinking wine and getting our freak on. You too tired to fight when you drunk and got your freak on. You ain't fighting nobody.
Yeah, I mean, this planet is really nice. And if we could, just do what we could, work out, just work and enjoy each other. Don't put so much in productivity. Put it into living.
Yeah, that's why I say, like yesterday, I was talking about expressing it, learning who you are, learning how to express yourself and be who you are. The part, whether regardless of what society says about you, but as long as you're not hurting someone else, you should be able to just live your life in peace and allow other people to live their lives in peace. If the monks want to walk, let the monks walk. Matter of fact, celebrate what they're doing. They're trying to stop violence. Work on a national level, and on a local and national level. Because in every town they stop in, only thing they're talking about is having peace and being mindful of who you are and being and caring about your community and caring about your fellow man. That's it. That's all peace is. Giving consideration to other people and then living your life and other people giving you consideration to be able to live your life. That's it.
That's it.
But the Christians can't handle that. Nope. They want war. They want disruption. Their whole thing of Revelation is filled with just war and catastrophes and all this kind of stuff, instead of living in harmony with the earth, living in harmony with each other. We don't have to destroy the planet. We don't have to, criminalize every damn thing that happened. We can just live in peace and everybody's happy and not destroy your home. Well, you do have people who live, they do destroy their own home. You go in their house and they got shit all over the place and bugs and the house stank and all that kind of stuff. But most people like living in a clean, organized space.
Right.
If we treated the earth that way, there wouldn't be hunger, there would not be war, and we'd be in a state where we're being fair to everyone, fair to every nation. There wouldn't be borders, there wouldn't be nationalities, there would just be humans. So there wouldn't be race, we just exist in harmony with the earth. But we've industrialized and we can't do it. We can't. Well, let me not say we can't do it. We don't want to do it.
I guess the only way we're going to unite is when the aliens come.
Yep. And that'll only be for war. It was the movie Independence Day. That's all it'll be. They just Independence Day will unite us for a while. If we win, we'll go back to our bullshit. We'll go right back to hating each other and fighting over resources. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I went way off the subject, but it's all right.
Yeah, but it's been resources for us for millions and millions of years. So why are we fighting over resources now?
Honestly, because some lands have overpopulated themselves, and so once they overpopulated themselves, they had to go out initially to get basic resources, but then as they industrialize, they need resources for their industrial living. So like the age of exploration for the Europeans is really the age of we can't grow enough food and got enough material to support the number of people, so we got to go to other lands to get it. And then once they get to those lands and realize that they can take it instead of having to be fair with it, then they just take it, because it's cheaper to take it than it is to do it through fair negotiations.
Right.
Like if America really thought that if America, I ain't gonna say America, if Trump really thought that we needed Greenland for protection, then just like we have in Germany and these other countries where we pay to have bases located there for protection, we could just do that. But it'll be cheaper in the long run to just take it than it is to put military installations there, do all the internal affair, international policies and all that stuff to just have a bunch of bases there. You know, this joker talking about some, we don't want China or Russia as our neighbor. Well, hell, Russia is our neighbor in Alaska. What the hell are you talking about? Like,
Right.
have you not looked at a map? So honestly, it's probably just for the minerals. For the minerals, just like Venezuela is for the oil, just like Nigeria is for the oil. It's just for the minerals. It's for the money. It ain't got nothing to do with protection. And when was the last time, other than Taiwan, China hasn't invaded anybody other than Taiwan in the last 100 years? Russia hasn't invaded anybody in the last 50, 60 years except for Ukraine. While America has invaded Venezuela, we've invaded Panama, Nicaragua, Libya. Yep, Libya. We've been going around just with a big stick. Never want to talk about other people.
Right.
It's a bunch of bullshit. It's all about money. Follow the money and you'll find it. Greenland got minerals. Venezuela and Nigeria got oil. It's all about money. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Because OPEC is going to start losing its power in the next 30 to 50 years. So if you can snatch up Venezuela and Nigeria and control their oil, then when OPEC, which is the Arab nations, when they start losing their power of oil, then America is the big oil. We the one that got all the money. We got the power because we control the oil. Right. And then Greenland, you control their minerals. And then I would suspect that at some point he's gonna be like, oh, we gotta go to Congo. Because you want to get Congo they got the most mineral rights than any place else on the planet. So we got to go get them too. So if you can get Greenland, Venezuela, probably Colombia, Nigeria, and Congo, you'll control a good 20 to 30% of the world's economic base. And if you control the economic base, you can control the world. Because everybody needs what you got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. I'm kind of scared of reincarnation. You know what? Because suppose I have to do this over again.
I ain't coming back. If reincarnation is real, I'm not coming back. I've studied the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I got a very good understanding of it. My guilt, shame, and fear is all gone. So I'm good. If reincarnation happens, I'm not going into the lights that bring you back to Earth. I'm going to Nirvana. You jokers might be coming back, see your demons that you create, not realize you created those demons, and then you scurry away to one of them earthly lights. I won't be scurrying away to an earthly light. I know, though, that's Nirvana light. Let me go to the Nirvana light. Y'all can have this earth again. And all these damn humans. That's why I was saying earlier, if the alien showed up, if some apparition showed up in this room right now, I would think it's an alien first. And my question is, what planet you from? What's it like on your planet? Is it better than Earth? Yeah, it is. Okay, take me there. And to hell with all of this. Yeah. No.
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting conversation. And so the conclusion is that the flaw of the crucifixion is that it didn't work.
Yeah, that is, yeah, the conclusion definitely that this crucifixion of this particular character is a made-up story. Plenty of people were crucified, but this one that leads to the whole resurrection is just part of the myth of Jesus. And Jesus and the Jesus of the Bible is a myth based on multiple characters and multiple motifs. And I don't believe it for 1 second. That's the conclusion of it.
That's the conclusion.
Right. And there ain't nothing that can change that aspect of it. Other than the only reason people will stay with it because they choose to believe it. They ignore the information and just choose to believe it.
Yeah. And it's hard. And I say, I don't think Christians really read their Bible, because if they did, they would probably, change their mind about something. Of course, the guests that you had on yesterday, they read the Bible, but they inject so many crazy things in it about Adam, praising God, and he was the first one, and then some other people came about, and I'm just interjecting stuff inside it.
Yeah.
It's so confusing. But had not even read the Bible.
No. And they give it a fancy name of exegesis, which is them reading intent into the story. And they're reading their own intent from their own perspective. And that's about it. But Miss Fifi, I'm going to let some other people come up.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be standing by.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Thank you, dear. All right. Somebody had said something earlier about why haven't I tried to get 10,000 people? Yeah, for 10 years I did, and people didn't want to do it. So after a while, after 10 years, I was like, to hell with people. Kyle.
Hey man, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, Kyle?
So it's nice to see you again, man. It's been a minute.
It is. I took a little holiday hiatus because we was moving and traveling. So I wasn't able to do lives because I was moving around. But then I just decided to take a little bit of a break.
You still in Texas?
Oh yeah, we just moved from one side of the city to the other side.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So flaws in the crucifixion story. This is an interesting topic. I've always found that, because I think you talked about the flaws before. One of the biggest ones you brought up, and I found it to be very interesting, and I kind of forgot about myself, whereas the one where after he was crucified, only one person brought it up, that a bunch of people rose up from the dead and started walking around. And then I think there was another one where there was an earthquake. So, and then I started, because what I was thinking about this when you brought this up, and I was at work, and I thought about this while you brought this up to work, and I said to myself, I remember Coach Renz brought up this, and I think only one book talked about it. And then you'll hear Christians say, well, Jesus brought up people brought up from what they saw,
Mhm.
the four gospels, their version. But I'm like, okay, why does only one book talk about the rising of so many dead people? And how did the other three books miss that? Because that's a very, very important event.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it's like, I would, of course, the crucifixion, they would say it's important, but it's also important that a lot of people rose from the dead, because that could have been millions upon billions of people. And how did the other concepts miss this? You know what I'm saying? And then there was a big earthquake. How did you miss a big earthquake? And how did you not pay attention to that? You know what I'm saying? And I think you brought up some other stuff as well, long time ago, of how, there were two that ran to the after Jesus got crucified. There was two that ran to it. Then the next story says that there was one that ran to it. The angels were different within the situation. And, and my whole thing is this, it's just, and then on top of that too, if we're going to really go back into the roots, I hear that the four gospels wasn't even written by their original people.
Mhm. No, they weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't written by the original people. That is guaranteed, because most people, pretty much every biblical scholar who is not who didn't go through a seminary but went through religious studies,
Mhm.
they recognize that the Gospels were not written by the actual Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. That they were unknown. They was written anonymously. And in Matthew 27, 52 through 53, is where he talks about, is the only book that talks about this mass number of people. I don't think he said an exact number.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah. That's why I said it could have been thousands, millions, billions. I don't know.
well, it says the tombs also were open, and many. So the earth shook. So this is the earthquake. The earth shook. So let me go. 51 says that at the moment the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, the earth shook,
Mhm.
and the rocks were split. The
Mm.
tombs were open, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After the resurrection, then they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Right. And when the centurions and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God."
Mhm.
So this all happened not in this New Jerusalem, as one dude on TikTok was trying to say, but in Jerusalem itself. Matthew is the only person who records this. No Romans record this, no Roman historian, no Jewish historian, nobody record, no other gospels. Just Matthew records this event happening, which is a huge red flag to make that type of statement.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't think Mark talks about it. I don't think John talks about it. I don't think James talks about it.
Nope.
And it's
You don't,
just, go
yeah,
ahead.
you don't even see this in the gospels that weren't accepted to the Bible. None of them even talk about it.
Yeah.
So this is a one-off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the story of the one, I hate to bring this up, but it's kind of part of the whole God topic here. The one story that threw me off too, that I think that they just, because I feel like, well, I do want to keep it on the four gospels, but there's a lot of books in that Bible that it just, I felt like, where the hell did this come from? You know what I'm saying? Like, I read the Tower of Babel and I'm like, okay, weren't we just talking about the story of Abraham? How the hell did this even get in here? Was this somebody just having a bad day and they just want to put a damn story in here about this? Like, well, what is this? Like,
I know,
so
right?
yeah,
The,
yeah.
the Tower of Babel is another one of those stories that makes no sense to me. I call it it's a grandpa story. Somebody sitting up, you know how you sit on your grandpa's knee and you ask him why something is happening in the world, and he gives you some bullshit ass story, some fish story.
Yeah, it was so random because it was talking about Abraham and no. Was it Genesis or it was
No,
in a
it was talking about Noah and
yeah.
his three sons, and then it was given a description of where his three sons' children all, like from Ham, you got Canaan, and you got the Mizraim, and all these people, and trying to say that's where all the people in the world came from.
Right.
And then it even talks about how some of them already had their own languages, but then they just shift into this, and everybody spoke the same language, and they decided to build a tower to reach God. And God was like, "Oh hell no, we can't let them build this tower because then."
Where did that come from? This has nothing to do with Noah, the ark, or his family, or any of that. It was just that sounded like the book just took a commercial break or something.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the Tower of Babel. We could have put this anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's a messed up story because what I didn't like about the story was it shows how powerful human beings could be and stuff like that. I don't like how God separated the people like that and did them like that. As a non-Christian, I finally get to have an opinion against this Bible. And at the time when I was a Christian, I was just like you. I was so into this and didn't want to challenge it, didn't want to look side eye. I always thought there was something funky about the Old Testament, though. Even as a Christian, I always thought there was something screwed with this Old Testament. But speaking of the four Gospels and the whole conversation, I was always told that technically the book of Acts is the start of the New Testament. But see, the problem now that I have with that, with people who say that, is that, well, I've always said, someone told me on Facebook a long time ago that Paul was a false apostle. Okay. Now, at the time, in my Christian, hypnotism, if you want to say that, I'm thinking, what the hell is this person talking about? Paul was awesome. Paul was great. Paul was called and ordained by God. But the more I deconstruct and the more I get away from this gospel, I'm starting to realize that, wait a minute, that person sounds like he knew what he was talking about. Paul is a false apostle. He taught something completely different from Jesus.
Indeed, he did.
And most people admire, and most people follow Paul. Most people are considered New Testament Christians in today's society, where they follow Paul's teachings. And one video I did look at, I don't know if you saw this, but it was a Muslim that brought this up. It was, of course, he was sticking up for his religion, but he brought up a good point. You're reading a Bible. You're reading books read by someone who persecuted Christians. And then he said, for an example, let's say that Adolf Hitler decided after he killed a whole bunch of Jews, he decides to write a book, basically, trying to guide the Jews, so on and so forth. And then he asked the crowd, do you think they're going to read that book after he done killed all of those Jews? You're reading. He went from killing Jews and now he writes a book for them. Now, of course, in my opinion, Paul sounds a little bit more nicer. He makes Christianity a little bit more easier. I think that's why so many people follow him.
He makes it a hell of a lot easier.
He makes it a hell of a lot easier, which Jesus did not necessarily do that. You actually had to put in work to prove something. And and speaking of work, I tell Christians all the time, when I have these discussions with them, that, you actually have to show, what you represent. You represent Christ. So when you treat people like shit, remember, it's more than just you. They're looking at it as, this is Jesus treated me like shit. So I tell Christians all the time, you represent your God, even though he might be a myth, you still represent him, and you represent him in a way. And and if you really want people to represent this God, if you really want people to come to Jesus, you have to show them by how you treat other people. Martin Luther King, he just had a birthday, rest in peace. Martin Luther King said, do not judge a person by their color, but by the content of their character. And it should not matter what race they are. And that stuck with me because basically, Christians and people, if a Christian's going to sit up here and say how good this Jesus is and how good Jesus has been in their life, okay, I'm going to start by, okay, well, what is your character? because your character tells me what this supposed Jesus has done for you
Yeah.
and who he is to you. So, and Christians, and as opposed to the topic of the four gospels and everything like that, like I said, different stories, different dialects. But the Bible also says that that we could do what Jesus did even more. So, Jesus had healed someone who had his ear cut off, or a matter of fact, he rose people from the dead. So
Yep.
I like to think, can Christians, have you ever seen a Christian raise anyone from the dead? Nope. Have you ever seen a Christian, I hear Christians talk about, oh, I saw someone, they went to the hospital and God, and their bone did this, and God just healed their bone. He healed their headache and stuff. I said, okay, well, let's see if this healing stuff really works. I want someone that was in Vietnam, or, at your time, what was that war called back in the early 90s? What was it?
You talking
What was
about
that? Huh?
Desert Storm?
Desert Storm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want someone that had their legs blown off, either Desert Storm, Battle of Fallujah, which was the early 2000s, or in Vietnam, leg, arm completely gone, hasn't, and I want to see a Christian take their hand and grow the thing back as if it had never fallen off. If I see that, I might be a little convinced.
A little
But
convinced? Yeah,
just
you ain't gonna see it. And
yeah,
have
exactly.
and you
Exactly.
haven't seen it.
You have to put these, you have to really put them to the test. You know what I'm saying? They say they have the power of healing and this and that. The only thing these Christians have is tongues. And these tongues I question, because it all sounds like some kind of African
Yeah.
language, or from India or something like that. And like it's shagabaga shagaba or something like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And that's all they
And,
got.
and the Bible, in the readings of Paul, he said that the speaking in tongue is the least gift
Yeah.
that you desire. That the one you should desire is healing people, and that's
Yeah.
the great gift. But ain't nobody healed nobody. No Christian has went and healed another person of any damn thing.
Oh.
Now people have placebo effects of, oh, my arthritis ain't bothering me, but then a week later that arthritis is whooping that ass. Like right now, there's a bunch of Christians who arthritis is kicking their ass because of this cold front that they dealing with. This weekend it's supposed to be cold as hell here in San Antonio. My arthritis is gonna kick my ass a little bit. That's why I got to get my gym in. I got my gym in last night. Got to get it in today and tomorrow, because when it's cold, I ain't going to the gym.
Yeah. And that's the one thing, man, about deconstructing. It helps you focus on reality. And that's one of the things that I love about people like you and I, is one thing, like I think I told you this before, but Christianity has distracted me from reality. It distracted you from reality, and it had you believe in a whole bunch of bullshit that just wasn't the case. And now that we get to really see life for what it truly is. And I love how you influence people. I love it when you do this, to live their best life on this earth. I've always said, I think one of the biggest reasons, and forgive me, you're probably going to laugh when I say this, but I think one of the things that turned me off to one day going to heaven was reading the scripture that we can't have wives, and we can't, or you won't be married in heaven. Basically, when everybody goes to heaven, they're going to be single. And we're just going to be single, living in our own mansions with painted streets of gold, and we're just going to be worshiping God all day. When I heard that, I said, I don't quite know if that's heaven to me. And that was and that was one of the things that led me into questioning Jesus and this whole gospel. Was I can't have a wife, I can't have kids, I won't be able to, you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, I want wife, I want a kid, I want to start a family down here. I believe that we could have a heaven down here. I don't feel like dying is just, because you have to think too, when like I'm depressed, I have anxiety and all that type of stuff, and just looking forward to, basically you're looking forward to death. That's basically what you're looking for when it comes to you wanting to go to heaven. You're looking forward to death. People wear that cross of Jesus. You're representing death, okay?
Yep.
I want to live. I want to have fun. I want to live my life.
Exactly. Like, you know what? I don't think it's funny what you said, because I'm gonna tell you one of the saddest moments that I had in my life is I think I was probably about 26, 27, maybe 25, when I really realized that in heaven you're not married, right?
Yeah.
I said it as a smart ass comment during a counseling session, but then when I thought about it, it was actually sad because, you know, I was in love with my kid's mother, right? We were going through a rough patch. And when the pastor said something, when the pastor counselor said something about being in heaven, I was like, well, hell, in heaven, we ain't married anyway. So I was being an asshole when I first said it. Later on, when I thought about it, and at that time frame, I'm thinking I'm going to be with this woman for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to give her up in heaven. I can't be with her in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love this woman. We fit. We can. What I used to say, I used to tell people that me and her can be in a room, a padded room with a paper bag and have a great time, right? So now at 25, 26, you telling me I ain't gonna be with her?
Yeah.
I was like, this is some bullshit. I don't want to
Yeah.
be up there if I can't have her. And then, you know, as I kept going through the Bible and then start reading some of the other stuff, I realized that ain't no women in heaven. There are no female angels. Everybody's a dude.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no female angels. Every angel in the Bible is a dude. So if we're going to be transformed, are we all going to be transformed into dudes? And the Gospel of Thomas actually says at the end, I think it's one of the last sayings in the Gospel of Thomas when they were like, Mary doesn't deserve the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus was like, I'm going to transform her into one of you dudes. And then she'll be able to get the kingdom of heaven. So I was like, hey, man, the Gnostics also thought that everybody in heaven is dudes. I don't want to be in heaven with a bunch of dudes. It's different just to hang out
be in the room with a full dude.
You know, but that's not heaven. And
Yeah,
then the worst part, this is the worst thing that I realized about heaven. In order to be in heaven, and you know, think about somebody that you love, they're not in, but they're not Christian. They in the lake of fire for all eternity, suffering. How am I going to enjoy heaven if I know that my grandfather is down there suffering in hell?
My grandfather too. I was going to say my grandfather.
Hell, my grandfather, my dad, my uncles. I can't think of one uncle that will make it to heaven. Hell, there's some other members of my family, friends that I have that are close to me like family and are my family. All these motherfuckers gonna be burned in hell. How can I be happy in heaven unless you make me into a slave? Wipe my mind so that I don't remember them, because you know you was always taught you'll meet your family in heaven and y'all gonna have a great family reunion and all this kind of stuff.
That's a good heaven right there. I wish that was the case.
Yeah, but Uncle Aubrey Lee is not gonna be there. Uncle Eddie ain't gonna be there. Eddie B, the other Eddie ain't gonna be there. Edward ain't gonna be there. Denon ain't gonna be there. My grandfather ain't gonna be there. My dad ain't gonna be there. My uncle, my other uncle, he ain't gonna be there. Ain't none of these jokers gonna be there.
Can we at least visit like we do in prison? Can we at least get a phone call or something? Or
so
you know,
right. So in order for me to enjoy heaven, because heaven there's no sorrow, there's no crying, none of that stuff, right? I'm gonna have sorrow if I got family members down there burning in hell.
Yeah,
I got some people who are Buddhist and Hindu that are good friends, or at least used to be good friends, but they're still good people, even though we don't talk no more. But they were good people.
Yeah.
How they gonna be in hell? And I'm supposed to enjoy this?
Yeah.
So why do I want to be a slave in heaven, some mindless automaton?
Yeah.
You know, and their excuse is, well, you're going to be so happy to be with God that you won't even think about it. Bullshit. And let me hit you with the last one, and it goes back to the women thing and no wives.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You telling me we ain't gonna have no pom pom in heaven? Some of the most peaceful, joyous time is right when it's over and you collapse on the side of the bed all sweaty and shit, and you
I love
just
you,
sit there and
dude.
all that euphoric feeling and just like the whole world has melted away and it's like,
I love you, man. You're
you know what
awesome.
I'm saying?
I love you, dude. You're awesome, man. I
You
tell
gotta
you,
have some boom boom.
yes, 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 yes.
You
Amen
know,
to that. I
got
think that this whole gospel thing with Jesus, I think that it takes away from, because I think you believe this too. I think we human beings, there is a way for us to come together and to really turn America upside down, turn this world upside down. And we can actually make this world a better place, not just for ourselves, but for the future generations to come. It just, we got to find a way as a people to conglomerate. If we can
Mhm.
figure that out, and it doesn't matter the race, everybody, white,
Yeah.
black, Puerto Rican, Asian, if we can figure that out, I mean, we can make heaven a place on earth. We can make it to where we can live to 100, 120 years old. I mean, even though this earth is a shitty place, this country is a shitty place, I've always believed, even as a child, in the midst of shittiness, that there is a such thing as better days for all of us. It's just we got to figure out who are these human beings that are ahead of us, or who are these human beings that are destroying that. Either we help them. Go ahead.
Hold on for 1 second. Demario, that kind of language on my page will get your ass deleted. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm not suffering. Just as a warning for anybody else who want to speak in this manner, you can get the hell on. That's your warning. That's your warning.
Cool. Wait. What did he say? I'm trying to read it. How you gonna be a slave? Y'all thought.
He said, "How you gonna be a slave, you dickhead? Y'all want. That's all. You can't even create a sentence right." Um, and then he used the, "I don't tolerate the N word from anybody, black, white, I don't give a fuck. All you care about is pussy, and then tell us your gay ass do." So
I'm gonna say this. That's not all I care about. I actually care about, I want to see families get back together. I want to see families, especially black families, and that will help alleviate some of the crime that happens in the black community. I want to see people. I'm the type of guy. So when it comes to women, so let me give Demario a little introduction to how I handle business. Okay. Now, especially when it comes to women and stuff like that, Christian or not, I have always valued women, and I've always looked at women, even though I've had a lot of bad experiences with women, especially growing up around them. I have always believed that women, they are something, and they are something to be valued, regardless of how crazy they act. And I've always believed that, a man should treat a woman with respect and stuff like that. Now, you've made aware that this Bible is, what I'm saying, has disrespected women and has downgraded women. And to some degree, I do agree with that. I think the Bible does do a little bit disrespecting of women and disvaluing them and this and that, and this is where I disagree. I also disagree with biblical scripture, because I believe that women are more than what we make them out to be. See, this is why they're acting the way they acted now, because they're trying to show us, they're trying to prove to us that they can do something. They're trying to prove to us that they can be something. But when it comes to guys like me, just the fact that you're alive is enough for me to say, okay, she's powerful, she's a queen, she's a
right.
princess. You don't need to do anything special for me. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to join no Marine Corps. You don't need to join no military or you don't need to do any of that stuff. If you want to do it, you can do it. You don't have to be the president of the United States. Just the fact that you can give birth, or rather you can just be just a kind individual, being nice to people. You know what I'm saying? Just being a good friend. That's good enough for me. Okay. Nobody has to prove anything to me. If you are a kind, loving, and caring individual, that's all I care about. You know what I'm saying? And so, so to him, to say that to him, that's not all I care about. I actually, I never really cared about that kind of stuff. I've always cared about kindness and lovingness and so on and so forth, and not just for women, but for everybody.
Nah, don't worry about that bastard. I blocked his ass. He kept making more comments, so I blocked him. He gone.
And that's the thing. He's probably a Christian, and that's the problem. Is
Probably is.
Christianity takes value away from people, because you'll have Christians say, because I saw a post on Facebook how Martin Luther King wasn't a Christian. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then I saw another comment saying, okay, guys, let's focus on Jesus and not on Martin Luther King and this and that. But the one thing that we have to remember is that Martin Luther King, whether he was a Christian or not, was a leader. Now, a lot of people feel like Malcolm X was the better leader on the black side, but Martin Luther King. I'm actually gonna agree with you. I'm with Malcolm. I'm gonna be a little honest. I'm a little more of a Malcolm X guy myself. But Christians have to realize that they are leaders. Okay, we don't see Jesus. We don't know what color he was, how tall he was, how fat he was. We don't know anything, but we do know what you guys look like, just like you guys know what we look like. So you have to remember that you guys are leaders. Okay, to sit up here and say stop focusing on people and to focus on Jesus. That's what I call a cop out. That's why I call you a punk, right? A sucker. That means that you sit up here, you call yourself this Christian, but you don't want to take on the Christian responsibilities, at least the good stuff that the Bible says that you should be doing, like showing hospitality towards each other. Granted, it wasn't for us blacks. You made that clear, that loving your neighbor as you would yourself wasn't meant for anything other than the Israelites themselves. But again, if you want to be that Christian and if you want to talk about that, you have to represent that. Okay, you have to represent what love looks like. Stop posting these signs saying that people are going to hell. That's, if you want to show somebody love, that's not how you do it. And shoving the gospel down my throat, that's not love. I'm about ready to take the Bible to some of these Christians and slap upside the head with it when they do that kind of stuff. I need you to show me how you care about people, how you love people, regardless if they're gay, regardless if they're a Muslim, a monk, right? Show me how you love and care about people, because you are a leader. You're representing something, okay? And so if people bash this religion like they have been doing, and I think you're doing a great job, because you don't just bash it, but you give great history behind why it should be bashed. But if you really want, I tell Christians, if you really want people to join this gospel, that starts by how you treat and how you talk to them. We cannot focus on a God that, hell, we can't even prove even exists, right? We cannot focus on hold on one second. We cannot focus on a God that that we don't even know what he even looks like. And now you got black Christians saying that he's black. We don't see Jesus, okay, but we see you, okay? We can, you know what I'm saying? You guys can't even prove that Paul existed. Can they even prove that Paul or Peter or no, that you can't prove that any of the biblical, even Mary herself, we can't even find her damn grave. But yet Catholics are making statues about this woman, making crosses, talking about Mother Mary of Jesus, Bloody Marys, all of these things that imitate, but we cannot prove that any of these people existed. The four gospels. Sorry. We cannot prove that any of these people ever existed. We cannot, the people who wrote the gospels, they didn't, again, like we talked about with your main topic, they didn't even write the gospels.
No.
And yet you guys are believing in something that somebody else wrote. That's like that's like that episode of SpongeBob. I knew this guy, and I knew this guy, for those who watch SpongeBob, who this guy's cousin said this and whose guy's cousin said that. That's basically what that is. It's all hearsay. You know what I'm saying? There's no physical proof behind it. So again, so it's like there is no full archaeological based evidence that the things in this Bible actually took place. There is no full blown evidence that these things actually happened, which is getting me the idea that somebody is screwing with the people who believe in this stuff. They're screwing with us who believe this mess. They screwed with you. They screwed with me. They're screwing with us because the information that they write, like your title, flaws within the crucifixion. They're writing all of this different stuff. It's not even accurate.
No, it's not. All of it is a hodgepodge of information based on a whole bunch of rumor mill and telephone game. And
exactly.
You're right. You can't prove Paul exists. The only thing you have about Paul is some letters. There's no Roman records of Paul. There's no Roman records of his death and his trial or nothing like that. And even if, and you can say that it's most likely that if there were some records, they probably don't exist anymore. but you still need some proof that Paul existed other than his letters. Now you can accept that, and many of them do, but the letters of Paul contradict what the Jesus character is teaching. So Paul is just an evangelist who sees an opportunity, if he did exist, or whoever wrote those letters is just seeing an opportunity to grow this pacifistic version of Christianity and become important within themselves. And his whole conversion story is not even told by him, it's told by Luke. Luke is telling that story. So a whole nother author who is making up some shit about Acts and is meeting in Jerusalem and creating authority for Paul is written after Paul supposedly died. And Paul never claimed it himself. So Paul doesn't really exist. There's no proof of him. There's no proof that this Jesus character existed outside of this Bible or any of the apostles. You know, there might have been a good fisherman who followed a new sect of Judaism, but that illiterate fisherman probably just went and became a better fisherman, treated people maybe a little bit better as far as the standard of how you treat people back then, because he still would have treated women like trash, still would have looked upon non-Israelites like trash. Right. So it's not like you would have had this great change of heart that a person should have today. Because if you look at the characteristics of Jesus, Jesus wasn't a good person. He was an average joker. You know, treat your fellow Israelites good. Just that would be like a black person, black leader saying, we need to treat all other black people with respect and honor and dignity. The white people, we don't have to treat them as much. We don't have to respect or honor and treat them with dignity, which is exactly what white people did. They say that treat other white people with some dignity, but them darkies, we can treat them like trash. Because that was the Bible, and that's the characteristics of Jesus and the characteristics of the Bible. And women are still subclass, which is what everybody has been doing to women from day one of recorded history until now, right? And we still don't treat women fairly. Women still get the short end of the stick in most situations. It's gotten a lot better, and we're doing better. But we could do a whole hell of a lot better. And we can do a whole hell of a lot better as people, just treating other people fairly, treating them exactly how you want to be treated, which is you want to live your life in the best version that you possibly can, without somebody looking down on you, without somebody interfering with you. So don't interfere with someone else. Don't look down on someone else because they're doing something differently than what you're doing.
Yeah,
that would change the landscape tremendously if we just got that part. You know?
Yeah, that's why I said, as long as you're not killing nobody or doing anything. I mean, of course, there are some lifestyles that I do disagree with, but I mean, as long as you're a nice person and you're looking to help the economy and help out grow this nation and put this nation in the right zone.
Let me ask you a question. Do those lifestyles hinder you?
No, they don't hinder. Now, on a personal level, no. But if some of them, if they keep now, now two parts of this question.
Do they hinder other people?
Huh?
Do they hinder other people?
Okay, so other people, like I said, this is technically a two-part question, a two-part answer.
Okay, what's the lifestyle? First of all, let's get into the details. All this vague shit. What's the detail? What lifestyle?
Okay, so let's just look at it back then. All right, so let's look at it from the 90s standpoint. Thug life.
All right.
So that was a lifestyle back in the 90s, early 80s, 90s. And, gang bangs, Bloods and Crips, Tupac, Biggie Small, rapping it out, sagging your pants, wearing the bandanas and shit with a pistol. You know what I'm saying? Walking around selling crack and stuff. So that life, now the killing part does interfere because people got murdered, but the lifestyle itself without the murder, I would say for me, okay, so I was a baby in the 90s, right? But for someone like yourself, did it interfere?
Grown-ass man.
Right, you was grown, right? You had kids. For someone like yourself, did that thug life interfere with you as yourself? No. But as an influence, because so many people were influencing it at the time, as an influence and as an overall situation, yes. Because
I agree with you.
I can say no to it, but if I'm surrounded around so many people who are who are basically against what I am, it does kind of affect me in a way as far as the community is concerned. So Christianity, lifestyle,
No,
right?
I'm agreeing with you on that. So that's why I asked you specifically,
Yeah.
because that whole gangster mentality that
Mhm.
does affect other people's ability to live their lives, because now you can't walk down the street safely. We lived in this one apartment tenement where
Mhm.
we literally had to lay on the floor or crawl around on the floor, because
Really?
a gunshot could come through your window at any time.
In
So
Georgia?
yeah,
Really?
Techwood Homes, man. If you lived in Techwood Homes or Carver Homes or Little Vietnam, yeah, it was dangerous as fuck to live there. And we only lived in Techwood for about 6 months, but that was a 6 months where other people's lifestyle interfered with our ability to live a peaceful, happy lifestyle. You know,
Mhm.
so yeah, I disagree with those types of lifestyle, which is why we still have to have law. We still have to have law and order, right?
Mhm.
We still got to have that. So yeah, I'm opposed to those lifestyles because those lifestyles interfere with other people and how they live
Mhm.
and their happiness and their ability to grow, right?
Yeah.
So I'm with you. There are some lifestyles that I am opposed to.
Yeah, or Christianity is another lifestyle.
I'm opposed
So
to that one too.
So it does not affect me personally that I live in a community full of Christians. This is an example. It doesn't affect me personally, no. But community wise, it does affect me because if folks find out I'm not a Christian and they're not following and they don't tend to pose that correct and they don't really take kind to that,
Mhm.
especially back in biblical times, you can get killed for that, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I said, and it's the same thing with any other lifestyle, LGBTQ or witchcraft, Buddhist lifestyle. The lifestyle itself does not affect me. So that's part A. So no, it does not affect me on a personal level, but on a communal level, it does because everybody's influenced by it. If they see that you don't live by it, they don't respect it. And a lot of
Mhm.
times they have a problem with you. You know,
Yeah.
saying just because they know you're opposed to it. And like I said, it could be Muslims, it could be Buddhists. I mean, I would hope not Buddhists, but Buddhists, it could be LGBTQ, Christianity, thug life, any of these different lifestyles. So yes, so for someone to be a Muslim, if I'm in Saudi Arabia, okay, and if someone is I think there's a lot of Muslims that live out there.
Yeah.
Them being a
The
Muslim,
majority of the country is Muslim.
huh?
The majority of the country in Saudi Arabia is Muslim.
Okay,
The
so yeah,
overwhelming
exactly.
majority of the country.
So does it affect me that they're a Muslim on a personal level? No, but on a communal level, if they find out, especially if they find out if I'm not a Muslim, yes, it does affect me. So it just really depends on the area, the situation.
It
It
depends
depends
on
on
how you are as a Christian in Saudi Arabia.
yeah, that
If you
too.
like, you cannot evangelize to a Muslim. You can't stand on the street corner and preach.
Mhm.
You can't wear emblems of symbols of Christianity. You can't have a church with the Christian cross on it.
Yeah,
So it affects how you're able to worship because they don't do freedom of religion.
right.
So it affects how you're able to worship your God if you're a Christian in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
But beyond that, and it does affect, like, they've gotten a little bit more relaxed. In America, a non-Christian woman, you can't drive. Used to, you couldn't drive. A woman couldn't drive. Period. Don't give a fuck. Christian, Muslim, didn't matter.
right.
Now they can in Saudi Arabia, but
Mm.
they also, on the American compounds, a woman can wear shorts and bikinis and all that kind of shit. You step off that compound, you better be covered from wrist to ankle.
I'm convinced that American women are allowed to walk butt naked down the damn street without the man charged. Just, I hate to say that, but
No, you should be able to. You should be able to, if you want to walk butt naked down the street. But we have Puritan mentalities here in the United States, so that ain't gonna work. Now, for instance, if you were living in Spain or Germany and your woman want to lay out by the lake with her titties out, she can. You know,
Yeah.
you can't really walk down the street butt ass naked, but in certain places you can be butt ass naked. naked if you choose to.
I think
It's
it's
like
Amsterdam, right? Is
appropriate.
it Amsterdam? Is it
What?
Amsterdam? Where you can walk down butt naked? Or is that just the lake?
No, you really still can't walk down the street, any street, butt naked. You know,
Okay.
there's appropriate places for appropriate things. So you
Okay.
go to the red light district, you can pretty much get away with anything. Right? You go to the beach, you can lay around, walk around butt naked. Right? It's like in appropriate spaces. You can
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, it just depends on the lifestyle. And like I said, there's some lifestyles that I don't agree with. But as long as the lifestyle doesn't completely hinder me or kill me or, whatever, I don't really see the problem with it. I mean, to me, I've always said this to Christians. I would rather live in a place where they don't worship God at all, or they worship witchcraft, or they do basically anything other than Christian, that the people are nice to me, they're kind, they're very, we can hang out, we can have fun or do whatever, versus being a community full of Christians. They worship Jesus, they do all of this good, righteous, so-called American stuff, but these Christians don't care about me. They're just average Americans. They go to work 40 hours a week. We don't really talk outside of church. We don't really hang out. I'm having a hard time finding a girlfriend within this community because everybody's so busy. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's just like, versus this community, I mean, they work 40 hours and pay bills too, but we find time for each other. We spend time with each other. We check on each other, have fun. Yes, they might drink. They smoke cigarettes. They smoke weed. They do anything other than Jesus Christ, but these are good people. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? These are great people like yourself, right? I would talk to you all day. We can have realistic conversations, the stuff that I can't talk about with Christians. And this is one of the things I like about you. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about this kind of stuff. We can talk about certain things, and you've done certain things even on your live for me that I really appreciate for you, that you've done versus in Christian stuff. I feel like I'm at work when I used to go to church. I feel like it's like I'm at work. We got to follow all of these damn policies, what to do, what not to do. It's like I'm clocked out, guys. Like I'm not at work. Okay. When it comes to gossiping, which I think the four gospels is nothing but gossiping, back to the head of your video. When it comes to gossiping, a lot of Christians are big on gossiping. Now, to some extent, I agree with gossiping. You shouldn't really be gossiping. And to some extent, I agree with that. But I believe this: there's good gossip and then there's bad gossip. It doesn't matter how you spin it. Gossip is still gossip. You can gossip about the good things that somebody possibly did. You can gossip about the bad things. The gospel basically is all the four gospels, the four gospels, if you want to label it that way. It talks about the great things that Jesus did, but at the end of the day, it's still gossip. It's still stuff that probably didn't happen. It's still gossip. If you guys believed this gossip and did not do your fair research on it. So that's why I said, Christians are very strict about basically speaking negative things about the pastor. But I look at it like this: what if they're true?
Yeah, and they could very well be true. And oftentimes it is found out to be true. But look here, man. It's 3:00 my time. Here's central time frame. I've been on here for over 3 hours.
All right, my brother.
I got some studying to do and make some more videos. And then before my wife gets home, I only got 2 hours.
All right, man. Well, it was good to see you again, man. God, you be safe out there, bro.
You about to say that bullshit. May God bless you.
Yeah, it's a habit. I gotta break it. But have a good day, man.
An imaginary figure can't bless me whatsoever.
Yeah, I hear it. Yeah, I agree. It's
you know what? I think the next time somebody tell me God bless you, I'm gonna say, may the fairies bless you too. May the fairies sprinkle dust on you.
Yeah, I gotta break the habit, man. I'm just so used to it. All right, man. Well, I'll catch you later. Okay.
All right, appreciate you, Kyle.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah. So good conversation. Never stay on subject, but that's all right. We stayed on subject for a good 2.5 hours or more and kind of went back and forth on it. But good conversation all around, and I greatly appreciate it. So that's going to end the live today, you guys. I greatly appreciate you guys. And yes, continue to treat people exactly how you want to be treated. As long as you're not interfering with somebody, as long as they're not interfering with your lives or the lives of other people, everybody should be able to live their life accordingly and be able to enjoy themselves. And yeah, wherever you go to other countries, certain things you do in America, you can't do in other countries. But that's when you, as I think it was Miss Fifi was saying, you give up your body to that government. And oftentimes you should just choose what you really should be choosing is where you would want to exist in. Under what government will be most appealing to you. And if you don't like America, then it ain't the place for you. It's not the place for me. Right? America really isn't the place for me. Like, I would feel much better in other countries. Hell, I was more comfortable in Germany than I've ever been in America, right? As a black man. Yeah, because that was one of the first places where I got treated like a regular human being and not being treated as a black man. Yeah. So, yeah, it's hard out here, and it's hard for me to deal with. I'm going back to when the guy was saying, why haven't I did it in America? That 10 years was very depressing to me, very depressing to me, that so many black people, and I'm in Atlanta, were so conformed to American ideas that they couldn't even see the American idea of self-governance, and that all it takes is for you to decide. Because I had picked out the first town that we would go into. They only had a population of like 7,000, something like that. 10,000 black people moved to that town, and half of that 7,000 were black people. And it was close enough to Atlanta where you can still get everything you want in Atlanta, go back and forth to Atlanta, do whatever you want to do. And they had plenty of land for purchase. 10,000 black people moving to that town. We control that town. We control everything. Sheriff's office, the mayor office, everything. And people didn't want, but I still have to drive, an hour to work up in Atlanta. It's a whole bunch of bullshit. So after 10 years of trying to get that, to hell with it. Leave this country. And that's been the plan. And that's what the goal has been for the last, few years now, is to get things situated to get the hell on. So, like I said, I got one major thing to take care of. Once that one major thing is taken care of, it's a 99% chance I'm be ready. Hey, y'all, I'm talking to y'all from this country, and the time here is. But anyway, so I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We go live at 12 noonish Eastern Standard Time frame. So y'all have a great day, and always remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself. Oh, share and like every video that I produce. Share and like them. Subscribe to them. All right. So y'all have a great day, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations, and like Annie said, tomorrow. I love you. Tomorrow. You're welcome, boss.